You have,
Michelle is
okay.
recusing herself because she does live in the area of the subdivision that we're about to discuss. So, we're going to open the hearing for Alexander Estates. You want to identify yourself for the board?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dan Merrican with American Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant. Don Bond is here as well, the applicant. When we were last with you, we indicated to you that we wanted to go off and do some test pits, which we have done. We've done test pits across the site. Comfortable that we know the soil conditions throughout the project. And you also asked us to do a couple of things too, which one was to take on option 5, which was the option that we seem to be zeroing in on, which is 2 stub roads, extension of the existing 2 public ways. I'm going to move this. You asked us to shorten up Road B a little bit. Road B had come up in this territory. You asked us to pull that back a little bit. So we've done that, and we generated a new 11-lot plan, which is what we had on option 5, 11 lots. And we also provided you with a letter indicating the waivers that the applicant would seek, and we can go through that in a minute if you'd like to. The applicant also, however, has indicated a willingness to entertain a concept with larger lot areas and 9 lots instead of 11 lots. And it's basically the same road layout as option 5, and I've given you a sketch of that. And here I have depicted, which was the other thing that the board asked for, was some indication of how houses might sit, septic systems, tree lines, things of that nature. So I've indicated that on this sketch, and I've just shown, you know, an approximate house location on each lot, and a tree line, a clearing line around the project, and also septic system locations. And again, we're doing official septic testing next week, but we have done enough test pits of our own that we're quite comfortable that that these septic system locations are all going to be satisfactory. So do you have any questions about the plans?
Why is it that you had drawn up the 9-lot plan also?
Well, Ron, would you like to speak to that?
Ron Bonvy. I think that 9 lots fits the site better. I think the size of the lots are better. I've talked to the seller, and the seller is in favor of the 9 lots. I'm hoping to push this plan forward, so I thought that if I came to this committee or this board tonight saying that we've accomplished what you asked for in Road B and we've reduced it down to 9 lots, that it would be better received by this board. My goal is to go in and do a definitive design next. We've done several sketches, as you know. I've done every sketch that I've asked to do, we've done. And I said to Dan that we wanted to also depict the waivers that we'll be requesting so that we understand that. And bottom line is we feel that 9 lots fits the site best. And we also feel that we're ready to go to a definitive plan. So I'm hoping you feel the same way.
So it still stays as an open space
Correct.
subdivision?
This is an open space plan.
Now, does this fill your desire to stay out of a certain section of this lot?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would ask is maybe you could just review the no-cut. You have certain areas where perhaps there's some no-cut, where we're trying to protect some of the vegetation, some of the trees. Maybe you could review that. I'm not sure if you have that detail here. So particularly off the cul-de-sac, the lower cul-de-sac, so off to the right there.
Down in here.
So, yeah, so the backside of those parcels, and then perhaps the parcels up above the backside.
Well, there is no woods up in here.
Yeah, right.
This is all field.
Right. Perhaps the third one, though, the third one up from the bottom. Yeah, I'm
That
not sure
one?
if you have the lot numbered, but
7.
yeah. So you know, I'd just be interested in understanding what the if you've got some no-cut zones to try to preserve some of the upland, because that, my recollection is that's all upland towards the back of those properties.
This is all upland here,
Right.
this whole thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if we move forward with this open space application, the next step would be to file an open space special permit application where we would give you a more detailed plan. I think we've done a lot of the conceptualizing here in the last couple of months. But we would give you that, a little bit of extra detail on the open space plan, and that would show that kind of information.
Now, you weren't intending that that green line of woods edge there behind lots 5, 6, and 7 represent the no-cut line, are you?
It's just the woods.
Well, this was intended to be the edge of the tree line, basically, after development, was the thought. So
Which
this
is-
would all be
And
wooded.
which is, in essence, the answer to his question.
Right, I think he's probably looking for something a little more precise than this
Yes,
sketch.
but
which
that
is
Maybe so,
something
but
we
his
would
eyes are
provide.
better than mine, and so which I really want to understand what that's all
Yeah,
about.
this green
You have
line
your own
is
copy.
a conceptual tree line for this plan.
Where is the access to the open space?
You know, the access to the open space will come in between one of these lots, and I haven't really figured out exactly where we would put that yet, but it would come in between one of these lots in an easement or a narrow parcel or something like that. We talked about, there'll be under this plan, there would be a parcel in here that will be deeded to the town, but it would not be built road. But it would create, I would create a geometry so that if the town ever decided that it could be, that it should be extended through, I would create the geometry horizontally, vertically, etc., so that this could be built right through if the town ever got to the point where they wanted to do that. But for now, this would just be a parcel that we would deed to the town, and we can decide through permitting if we want to have a gravel road through there with a gate on it, or if we just want to leave it wooded, whatever the case may be. I don't know, we don't have any particular preference in that regard. That would be the town's decision as to what you want to do there between those two cul-de-sacs.
Do you have access to the open space from both Frederickson as well as the,
We would
side of it.
create that
would
access
create
from
it.
both.
okay, because I'm not sure I see it from Frederickson.
You know, and it may
I see
be,
it below.
it
but-
may be a trail through this
Yeah, right
town
between those two
parcel, and then you
cul-de-sacs
come
and-
up and through here. That-
So to get to one cul-de-sac to the other, and then you
Yeah,
could get
yeah.
in, that, I mean, that might be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Walter, you have any more questions?
No, it just, it seems like it's almost, does that lot line actually touch the street, no, to the right, way off, keep going to the right, there you go, right there.
Comes very close to the street, but it does not touch.
Does it touch the right-of-way?
No.
Does not touch the
This is the right-of-way line. It does not touch.
Okay, all right.
It's close, though.
Because that potentially could be
An access point.
another access point, yeah.
John, do you have any questions?
No, just to the fact that I like the bigger lot idea. I think it gives them the opportunity to build bigger houses, which I think the neighbors are all interested in. And from what I understand, most of the lots on Frederickson and Mountain Rock are acre-plus lots anyway, so I think it would just fit in overall better. And I think most people would rather have you have 9 lots than 11, but I like the idea of keeping all of that natural space behind there. So I think the plan's pretty good.
Thank you.
Andrea, do you have any comments?
No, you already touched on how to make the conductivity work. Usually, the open space tries to connect with all the lots as well as other public ways, so it's not here yet.
No, and we'll incorporate that when we move forward with the design in greater detail.
So, no other comments from the board?
There was a notation in the letter that said you're willing to forego the extra 2 lots with these list of waivers.
We put together a list of waivers.
Right.
We gotta go through that.
I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd like to, because I think some of them I think are very reasonable to ask, and I think others I wouldn't be for reasons that I can state later on. But I think that's probably a great idea to go over the waivers, and we've got the engineer here, and see which things really we could do without, considering this is gonna be a low-impact drainage design, correct?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay. With monolithic berms?
Can you see this better?
That's the proposal. You want to go through that
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
So, working from my letter, I'm just going to start at the top and run down them. from section 2.1, which is definitions, a waiver to classify Frederickson in particular, that extension, as a residential street, which would be a 50-foot layout, one sidewalk, versus a secondary street, which would be a 60-foot layout, two sidewalks. So we would be looking for that waiver. I think that Road B would still be classified as a residential street under the
You know,
definition.
yeah.
So I think that would only apply to the Frederickson extension.
What's the width of Frederickson?
The paved width is 20,
No,
the layout width
layout, yeah.
is 30.
30.
So we would be 20 feet wider than that with a 50-foot layout. Okay. 4.9.4, and I don't have any definitive plan on a quantity here, but a waiver request to allow fewer street trees. Your regulations require a street tree every 40 feet on both sides of the road. We don't have anything designed yet, but we wanted to present a comprehensive list to you, and we felt that we might reduce that number in our proposal.
I was actually looking for more.
I'm not
So
surprised.
again, we talked about this the first meeting, that the neighborhood, the setting, we're gonna be waiving, if we do waive catch basins and granite curbing and things like that that are substantially more expensive, I think a little bit of the landscaping
Okay.
wouldn't be a lot to ask, personally.
What's the caliber of the tree, if you don't mind me asking?
What are we using now, 3?
3
Inch.
I think in the regs it says 3.5, but we're pretty much.
at a certain height.
We go normally now with 3, I think. Most of the subdivisions in existence now are doing 3, which is, okay, 2.5 to 3.
I mean, as part of the answer to that question, how many trees can be preserved? I mean, those are mostly pines in there, so I'm not sure.
Well, you know, honestly, and subdivision regs do this a lot, but when you build a street, you can't really preserve trees in a street layout.
No.
By the time you do sidewalks and drainage and everything else,
Yeah.
there aren't any trees in a street
Well,
layout
especially
that
the
can be
pines, they
saved.
don't tend to survive
Well,
this.
the
type of
grades are
project.
all gonna work, so you're gonna have to take everything down anyway. And you're gonna, if you're setting some of these houses back, that means you're gonna be clearing a lot more of the middle of the lot, so that's why I was gonna be looking for maybe if you have additional trees, some inexpensive, maybe evergreens, just to sort of fill up. When you go back on a 125-foot driveway, you're gonna have a lot of barren space from the street back. So my thought was putting some inexpensive specimens there, just to try to fill up that space.
I would be willing to strike that request. That could be removed from the list of waivers.
Okay, all right.
Fair enough. The next one, here we would, as we've been talking about with DPW director, they're indicated a preference for a 20-foot curb-to-curb paved with a monolithic berm. So each berm it's a low-profile slope berm. It's a foot wide on either side, so you end up with a total paved width of 22 feet. As indicated, Frederickson is 20 feet. Oakview is 24 feet, so it kind of splits the difference between the two. And we could certainly treat each of these two roads differently, if that's something that the board felt was appropriate. But that's kind of, there's a couple of waivers on this list that pertain to that. Reducing pavement width, it's a low-impact development technique, reducing runoff. So that's something, again, that we would be looking for here, and I think that's a significant.
I thought it made
waiver.
sense to keep the Frederickson section, which is what, 200 feet? Keep that the same width as the rest of Frederickson.
Right.
And the Mountain Rock section, you don't want to go from 24 feet to 20, so I would keep Mountain Rock so it's
Yeah.
continuous right through the cul-de-sac.
It is going to be only 20 feet. It's the curb that's going to be an extra foot on either side. So they could maintain the 20 feet and then add the...
The Mountain Rock is 24 feet of street.
Right. Mountain
Frederickson-
Rock is different.
And Frederickson is 20 feet of pavement with no curbing, so his 20 feet will be fine
Right.
with the berm, exactly, yeah.
Right.
So I think then they both would tie in, so they are continuously all the same, it's the same setup.
The next one is a dead-end waiver, obviously, for Frederickson. It's a little bit longer than 500 feet. The next one here is a waiver to allow no center landscape islands in the two cul-de-sacs. This is something that DPW expressed to us as being something, streets that become public ways with center islands and cul-de-sacs, something that town needs to maintain. It's not a great situation for the town.
They always say that.
I put it in here. I don't know what the board's past practice is with regards to those center islands.
I would be for the Center Islands landscape.
We've left them out, haven't we?
No, we've never left them out.
Well, the one at
They've
the end of
requested them to be there.
The one at the end of Oakview doesn't have a center island, for example.
That's
It's old,
because
it's
it's
old.
prior. That's prior to the design.
Well, he's doing his site visits. I like that. I mean, it's not heavy landscaping, it's just a matter of, I tell you, if this is a 45-foot cul-de-sac, is it?
I mean, we haven't designed it. I
All right, but-
would imagine that it would be a normal cul-de-sac.
When you see that all pavement, it's huge. 45 feet of a radius on a cul-de-sac is huge. It looks like,
DPW's request.
I know.
We're just trying to not get in between different.
no, I hear you, yeah.
The next one, 4.17 is a design question. Your reg requires a cross-section every 50 feet on the road. I don't know that you need it. It's not common in subdivisions. We can do it if you think it's absolutely necessary, but it's something that we would be looking for a waiver from. We would provide a typical cross-section of each of the two roads, and that would apply to the entire road length. You know, drawing individual cross-sections at specific 50-foot intervals, I don't think
Yeah,
gives you any additional information.
I think this is one of the things in our requirements that is a little overburdensome.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah. 4.19 is now we're into stormwater management, and this is where we talked about a lot of low-impact development. But the first one is, again, a design issue. This is common in a lot of subdivision regulations. We used to do a lot of pipe design using the rational method. With software that we have now, we use HydroCAD, which is a common software product. It does pipe design embedded in the program. So, you know, with these regs, you end up doing two different types of calculations for your drainage design, and it really just doesn't make sense. We would model all the individual pipes in the HydroCAD program, demonstrate that they'll carry the 100-year storm, and there's really no point to doing a whole separate set of calculations using a different calculation methodology.
Any issue with that?
Now, if you guys are gonna go in and review all these things, do you have any issue with this?
That's what I asked him.
I don't have any particular issue. I mean, generally, I still feel the rational method is a better way to size pipes, and HydroCAD is more of a routing program. If the model is set up correctly and is comprehensive enough, it can work.
That would be my goal, to satisfy you.
How much pipe is involved in this subdivision?
Actually, there wouldn't be a whole lot of pipe, honestly. If it goes the way that we're thinking, there will not be a lot of pipe, which is a good point.
If it's,
It is a good point.
if it's minimal pipe runs, then HydroCAD may work just as well then.
Does the Board of Health have a standard for this?
The Board of Health does not have a requirement, I don't believe, for rational calculations. They have other requirements, but I don't think for that.
I don't think so.
4.19.4, this would be a request for a waiver to install borings in our stormwater BMP locations. From my perspective as a design engineer, it's overkill. They're very expensive. You have to get a boring rig back there to install them. I don't believe, as a design engineer, it adds any value to the design. My preference is an open excavation test pit. I'm a soil evaluator, so I can see the dirt, and I can classify the type of material it is and then design it in accordance with DEP standards from that point forward. Doing borings with in situ permeability tests, in my opinion, is just unnecessary.
You gonna have monitoring wells in there for a while?
For your post-construction?
Observe the water table, yeah.
We have monitoring wells. We dug some test pits, and we'll dig some more.
No, I mean, are you gonna monitor the water level over time in this?
I'll tell you, we dug 19 test holes. We found water in one test hole, and that was down in this location, and it was down, I think, 8 feet or so. Everywhere else,
Right, but I didn't ask that. I asked, are you gonna put the monitoring wells in and leave them in for months?
yeah, we have a well in. We have wells in
Okay.
locations.
So you've got pipes in there that the water level can be checked periodically?
Yes.
Okay.
We can add more after next week.
Yeah, we will add more. Yep.
How are you finding the soils?
The soils are, it's all sand and gravel for the most part. Okay, so from a line of about here down, everything is coarse gravel and sand. We did not find groundwater except in this one location. Groundwater basically is at the level of this wetland, more or less, which is consistent with a sandy soil. You know, you've got a lot of terrain in here, so the groundwater level underground, though, with a porous sand and gravel like this, is basically going to be fairly consistent across the site. Up through here, from here back, we have varying depths of sand and gravel on top of ledge. And the ledge depths vary. Ledge is up and down. In some locations it's 3 feet down, in some locations it's 10 feet down. So it kind of jumps around. But that's basically, that's the divide on the site, which is consistent with the published data for the site. It's all Class A soils because it's all sand and gravel. But down here, there's no ledge that we could find digging down 12, 14 feet. But up and back, there is some ledge back there.
So, since we're getting away from the traditional drainage system, where is the green drainage going on this site?
My concept, and I've just been thinking about this generally, is this is a hole in the ground. This is a downslope, and it sits perfectly, and it's all sand and gravel. It's a good location. My thought was that we would take the Road B runoff and put it in here and do an infiltration basin down here, and that would be that.
That's overground it's going to get there. Go over surface?
Here, we would probably do a combination, and we can get to that in a minute, but the design concept was a shallow roadside swale like you've done on other subdivisions, and then that would probably be piped down to here, probably. For Road A, the beginning of Road A, I think what I will probably have to do is I will probably have to collect it, because it's coming uphill from Frederickson. I'll probably have to collect it back here with a roadside swale again, and then probably pipe it out into here and do an underground system, was my thought. It's not a lot of runoff. It would preserve kind of the character of this area. This is all an open field, as it is anyways. So that was my thought off the top. And then I want to do, for the individual houses, and that's one of the waivers, I want to do larger roof runoff systems than one would normally do, than the regulations require, and I want to take credit for that in the drainage calculations. I might size those systems for the 100-year storm, if it makes sense, which I've done before. And I think in a lot of cases it does make sense. And I think in this case, with the good soils that we have, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you can take the impervious coverage associated with all those houses out of the mix completely from the standpoint of your drainage design. And all you're dealing with now is the roads and the driveways.
Is there any opportunity on each site to pick up some of that stormwater coming off of the roads and driveways? As you think about this design,
Into an on-lot system?
on lot, and then maybe it channels away from the lot. But I'm trying to think of ways to avoid having an underground system as well as that pipe. If
Yeah.
we can keep it above ground and keep, and rain gardens or something of that ilk.
We could certainly do an above-ground system right in here.
Sure,
That would be easy to do.
okay.
One thing we've spoken about but haven't put into action is using the island cul-de-sacs as rain gardens.
Sure.
It's a nice idea, actually. Yeah. That would work, because this road here, Road B, will go up and then down to the cul-de-sac, so you could certainly do something in there. The next one is what I was just talking about. Your bylaw says every roof should have a system designed to treat 1 inch of runoff, but you can't count it towards your overall subdivision drainage calculations. I would like to oversize those systems, and I would like to count it towards subdivision regulations, so we're not doubling up drainage BMPs and building systems that are larger than they need to be.
Any problem with that?
Again, probably in general, when I read the waiver initially, or the suggestion, it seemed to be worded for your benefit just to reduce the size of your stormwater BMPs. If you oversize the house lots, that may work. I guess I would question whether you have enough room on each lot to do that, given the septic system and the houses and so forth, but.
Well, that's something that I'll have to flush out. But I mean, obviously, the situation is this: if we don't get credit for the roof runoff systems, you know, we're going to put the smallest system the regs will allow, and no other thought would go into those systems. If we can count those systems towards the drainage design for the entire subdivision, then we'll make them bigger, as big as we can reasonably make them, and then that in turn reduces, you know, clearing necessary to accommodate a stormwater basin, size of a stormwater basin, and I think it is beneficial in many respects, not just for the applicant.
Yeah, again, I think it may make sense as you start to develop the design and you can see where your basins are gonna be and
Right.
how much impact you're gonna have, how many trees you have to remove and things like that.
Yep.
Again, on the surface, it seemed just an effort to maybe reduce costs and reduce the size of your BMPs, but as an integrated system, it may make sense.
Well, but understand also that those roof runoff systems aren't free either. So, you know, you oversize on those. You're not paying up front when you build the road, but you're paying every time you build a house lot. So, in my mind, it moves more towards that decentralized approach that, you know, the green approach to drainage design that is, you know, something that's becoming more popular now.
So the lots that have the ledge, you won't be using that system.
Well, it depends on the lot.
Use it where possible.
Yeah, there, you know, even up in these ledge areas, there are places where you have 10 feet of soil, great quality soil over the ledge. So there are certainly locations where that will be suitable.
Okay.
The next one is 419.7.2, and this is basically, there's a couple of here. The first one is the regulations require the use of catch basins at certain specific intervals with manholes and pipes in between. We'd like to waive that requirement and go with the concept that DPW pointed out to us was a cross-sloped road. So you'd have a sidewalk on the high side, you'd have a cross-sloped road, and on the low side, you'd have a shallow swale that captured the entire runoff from the road, runoff from the driveways, and then we would route that to our treatment and infiltration BMPs from there. And then we would certainly be able to do that on Road B and also on Road A as well. The second one, and I honestly haven't had a chance to talk to DPW about this, but there's a requirement in the regulation that proprietary treatment units, like a storm scepter or something like that, only be able to be cleaned with a clamshell bucket, which is the way they clean traditional catch basins. Quite honestly, most of the systems, and I'm not sure that I've come across one yet that is designed to be cleaned with a clamshell. They're almost always designed to be cleaned with a vacuum truck because they have more sensitive components. That's why they do a better job at removing pollutants.
Yeah, but in all honesty, I have 7 of the other type. And the main reason the DPW does not want, they want to use the clamshell bucket is because the guts in those are metal. The ones with the vacuum have plastic insides, and that's why they cost half the money, and they break. So we're gonna be,
The other thing is that when you do have a truck come to vacuum it out, it's like twice, 3 times the price as a
exactly.
clamshell.
So long-term,
It saves money over the time.
with the Vortechnic boxes, for example, that are inside, the whole guts inside are all metal. They go in with a bucket, they clean them out, there's no cost, and it can be done much more frequently, and they don't break. Because once these things break inside, then you have a problem. And the inside of those storm scepters are plastic.
And this is something that
And I know Bob is highly
I want
against
to
that. We just
explore
dealt
this
with
with
that at
Bob.
another subdivision. I know that the highway department is for the Vortechnic boxes for that reason, but you may only need, what, 1 or 2 here?
2 probably.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 probably.
They have to rent a vacuum truck if they want to vacuum.
It's very
right?
expensive.
Well,
yeah.
they pay a
Yeah.
company to come in and vacuum, and they charge a lot more money than a clamshell.
But the
company
bigger
would.
thing is, Steve, once the plastic guts inside break, then they're not
Right.
effective, and you've got the cost to replace it.
I did speak to Bob this afternoon about this. I asked him about the waiver, and he said, no, I definitely want the Vortechnics. I want the tech that can be cleaned with the clamshell.
It's something that we can work with. I was trying to be comprehensive in my list. Obviously, we haven't gotten into the design in any great
Yeah.
detail.
You seem to be.
The next one is 419.7.5 and 7.6. This is a requirement here that stormwater BMPs be on separate lots. Not only would we go with roof systems, but I may try to position something, you know, up in here maybe where we have a small BMP in an easement that's designed to catch runoff from some of the yard areas slow down the water, add some infiltration, things like that. And that requirement to have a BMP on a separate lot is very restrictive. You know, you can't really break up your drainage system into many small systems effectively. So the two primary BMPs that we're thinking of are here, and they will be on a separate lot, but I don't want to preclude the possibility that if as I'm designing this, there's a location where I want to do a rain garden or something, and I can't create a separate lot for it.
Gino actually mentioned that to you at the first meeting, you recall, our planner, one of our planners,
Right?
that to get the open space to work, you would have to ask for that waiver. Do you remember way back when?
I do remember
So
that
it
discussion.
was actually suggested from this table to do it that way.
Okay. Does that involve any easements?
It would involve easements instead of, yes.
So
You
we
would-
would include that in our decision if in fact the board would be supportive of such a plan?
Yes, correct. The second one is, and this requirement in your regulation that there be a 10-foot wide berm around BMPs is designed for large infiltration basins, large detention basins. If I go with more of a micro system like a small rain garden or something, there's just no need for a 10-foot wide berm around the thing. Maybe that unit is only 10 feet by 20 feet in size. So, you know, to double the footprint because of this regulation doesn't make a lot of
Just take that
sense.
lot of extra woods
Yeah.
for nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just looking for flexibility as I go forward with design. And the last one is the same thing. You have setback requirements, various setback requirements from detention and retention BMPs. They're pretty stringent. You can't have an infiltration BMP within 100 foot of a house. On this situation, a lot of our BMPs will be well below our houses because of the topography on the site. And you could have that BMP be within 10 feet of the house and it wouldn't impact that house one bit because it's below it. So those kinds of setbacks. And if we're doing smaller BMPs scattered throughout the site, we're obviously not going to be able to maintain 100-foot setbacks to houses and things like that, to streets.
Gave that to Tony DePlacido one, up on Old Oak Street, the basins being so close.
Yeah.
Okay. 5.28 and 5.29 is curbing to go from slope granite edging to that low-profile monolithic bituminous berm. That berm is something that DEPW is looking for. It is basically laid down when they lay down the top coat. That's why it's called monolithic. They have a shoe that goes out on the edge of the paver, and they lay down the top coat, and they lay down a sloped berm on the side of the road with it as they install. And 5332 is a repeat, catch basins, getting rid of catch basins in favor of roadside swales. And Appendix C is a catch-all from your standard road cross-section to incorporate the different things that we had mentioned above in our list. So that's the list that we have today. And again, most of it revolves around changing the nature of the construction of the road to something narrower and less impervious coverage, less runoff generation, and then changing the nature of our stormwater BMPs from the more traditional, you know, large stormwater basins set way away from everything to trying to integrate more smaller BMPs throughout the development.
But it was worth going through that list, tick them off and go through them all. Just want to make sure that we all heard the same thing regarding road width.
Yes.
We're going to go with 20-foot paved on the Frederickson extension and 24 on the, we're going to match
Yeah,
Oakview,
match them up.
right?
I think that's reasonable. All right, so we're talking about 24
Plus
on
curbing.
Road B, including the monolithic berm,
No,
or so
plus the curbing.
26 with the monolithic
26
berm?
with the
Right.
monolithic.
Okay. And then we would do here 20 with the berm, so a total of 22.
Right.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. Any other questions?
Sidewalks from the Oak Knoll side.
Yeah, there are no
You could
sidewalks
just-
on Frederickson, so there'll have to be some discussion about whether, you know, I don't know that there'd be a lot of point to running a sidewalk, you know, right here on Road A. There are sidewalks on Oak View Trail, but they stop at the intersection, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm not 100% certain about that.
Is that true? Did they stop there?
Goes up Mountain Rock. Doesn't go up the cul-de-sac.
What if we,
So it ends right, more or
if
less
we
right there.
bypass the one on Frederickson and you were kind enough to continue the Mountain Rock one around the new street?
So no sidewalk on
That's what I'm
Frederickson and then run a sidewalk up through here?
Mm-hmm.
I would say okay as long as there's no barriers between the
Yep.
installation. Sometimes you look at sidewalks and, oh my God,
I understand. It looks
As long
pretty
as
all
that doesn't happen.
flat there.
totally fine.
Okay.
Yep.
And everything matches up, so they,
Right. Any other questions?
Do you have any questions, John? Walter?
All set, thanks.
Jeff? Andrea? No?
So-
Everyone's got all their questions out already, huh? That made it easy. Okay, we're going to open it up to the public. So make sure that you identify yourself. You have to use the microphone. It's for the people at home. There's no amplification in this room. So are there any questions?
I'm Sarah McKinney, I'm at 6 Oakview Trail, and with the topography and the ledge, do you anticipate any blasting that is going to be needed?
No, not for the infrastructure. There may be a couple of these houses, depending on the elevation they're set at, may involve some limited ledge removal, but it's too early to identify that. The road itself runs through the area that is basically coarse sand and gravel, so there won't be any ledge removal involved there at all.
So my other question is on the lots 1 and 2 on Road B, off of Road B, on the right-hand side, sorry. So
Five
I don't
and
know what they're
six?
numbered, but on the
5 and
right-hand,
6?
5, 6.
Yeah.
It's on. Okay. So that property dips down. It's like a hill. So do you anticipate filling that, or how does that work? Or is the house sitting up on top?
The way we would do this is, conceptually, this road cut here would probably be taken down, because coming off of Oakview, it kind of goes up and then down again.
A little bit,
So we
yeah.
would take off a couple of feet in that hump, just take the curse off of that, and then these houses would sit, so their front yards would be level with the road more or less, and then they would have a walkout basement, a full walkout basement behind. So there would be an 8-foot drop from the front yard to the rear yard, and that would allow us to work in with the topography of that slope.
Okay, and then there's a side slope on that, is it number 6? No, next one down. Yep,
5.
5. So there's a side slope along the stone wall to the,
Yeah, there's almost a berm here, a natural
Yeah,
berm. That
yeah.
would not be removed.
that stays.
That
Okay.
stays, yes.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Flynn from 26 Frederickson. I believe a comment was made, and I might have missed it by the board, but for waiver 41491, why is a waiver needed for access to more than 7 lots? I'm probably not understanding it. I thought
That pertains to Frederickson. So Frederickson, so a residential street as defined in the regulation is a street that has access to not more than 7 houses. So Frederickson, being a long dead end already, has access to more than 7. So the waiver is to allow this stub to be classified as a residential street, and that ties in with that 7-lot definition. It's a definition issue.
So
Yeah,
there's...
could be an interpretational issue.
Oh, okay.
No, on Road A, so Road A will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses on it, and Road B will have 1, 2, 3, 4 houses on it.
How
So
many lots exist
it's
on
just
Road A now?
the question of whether the houses that exist on Frederickson go to the definition, which I think they do, which is why we're looking for this to be classified as a residential street.
So how many houses, so if there's not a cut-through, how many houses would it be going up? There are 4 houses that...
It's 5 new on Frederickson
5.
and 4 on
Oh.
Oakview.
Okay. And do any of these waivers, because I'm, just want to understand, Do any of these waivers leave the door open for a cut-through?
Yes.
Frederickson?
That's why it's designed the way it is.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yes.
It leaves it open for a cut-through if the town decides to put one in.
In the future.
In the future.
In the future. We're not designing for a cut-through.
Okay, so then the town later would make all the decisions surrounding that and pay for whatever it is.
Yeah, it's the small connection, right.
And so why do we need to leave that as a possibility?
Because that's the best way to design roadways, is to not design cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, we're going to run the water through that so that there's a looping water main. Police and fire may want a connection through there for an emergency. I mean, that's something that we'll flush out as we go forward with definitive permitting. But we're not going to design a road here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Pete Smith, 7 Frederickson Road. On the connecting the roads, who in the town would have the authority to say, let's connect them? Is it the planning board or?
Once the roads are accepted, it would be the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Also, too, access to the open space, would Road A and B both have access, or just B?
It will.
Everyone would have access.
But, yeah, but
Well,
on Road
they're
A-
they're going to be connected.
there would be 2 accesses then, right?
There'll be a pedestrian connection between A and B. And off the pedestrian access between A and B, there'll be another access point to the open space.
It'll be going through someone's yard?
No, it'll be a regular entrance, be 20 feet
It'll
wide.
be, okay.
So in other words, one of these lots will have a
Maybe
slice of
25.
20 feet taken off of it and made available, probably.
But there'd only be one access going to the open space. We'd have to go down the cul-de-sac and then enter.
Right, right. We prefer having multiple access points, but not all sites lend themselves to that.
Okay.
Can we just go through the process of just how you anticipate handling the land? Like, do you see going, clearing, obviously, the roads first? Is it Frederickson or Oakview? Just so, I think everybody wants to understand the expectations of what's going to happen in the process. And do you go through and just knock out the trees and clear the lots and then hope for somebody to buy it? Or just, what's your strategy of?
Well, we're early in that process, but typically, what is done is the roads and the infrastructure for the roads are built first. So they clear the roads, they clear the area for the stormwater BMPs, and they build all that. Typically, lots are not cleared until after the roads are basically substantially complete to binder course, and then they're ready to start building houses.
They have to construct the roadways first, because that's the only way they get frontage. In order to build a house in the town, you require frontage. And if there's no roadway built, they don't have frontage to build a house, so they have to build the roads first.
Okay, so is it like one side goes first to see how it goes, and then the second side, or is it
No, with a project
simultaneous?
like this, both roads will be built at the same time. Yes.
So, but I mean, it's a good question in terms of lot releases. Is there a scenario that perhaps the applicant has thought about in terms of how to approach this? I mean, there's 9 lots in total, whether there's, one side of the project, priority 1, and then,
So this is not, for this particular applicant, this is not a big project. Ron works on a lot of big projects, so this is a pretty straightforward project for him. He would go in and build both roads to binder and then request covenant release and institute a bond. A smaller developer, because of financial constraints, might do one road and then wait to do the other road. Here, he would build both and get them to a point for covenant release and put a bond in place.
so basically looking for all 9 lots to be released and all 9 building permits for homes to be constructed, and is that how?
Well, the release is the precursor to the building permits. I don't know that they would go out and build all 9 houses right off the bat. I don't think that would be the case, but they would, with the covenant release, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. If you're building both of these roads, you go for the covenant release and you substitute with an alternate form of security, whether it's a tripartite or cash or a bond or whatever the subdivision controller allows for. That would happen up front. They would build the infrastructure first to the normal completion point, which is binder course pavement. And then they would go for the covenant release and then start to work on house development.
So really, the question is directed to answer the question down there. We don't know at this point, is what you're saying. You
It's
don't-
really impossible to
Right,
predict.
fair enough, okay.
The only thing we can say is that both roads will be built right off the bat
Right.
together.
It's hard to say whether they'll build 2 houses and then 2 more, or what at this
Exactly.
point.
It really depends on market conditions.
Right, okay.
Well, when we get into the details, it's gonna be interesting because, to support the development, the construction, I mean, you have access from both sides in terms of what that looks like, in terms of vehicles, construction vehicles and such. So we may wanna put some thought and work with you to try to
Construction access.
minimize, yeah,
Yes.
for
I think,
the,
yes.
neighbors, and I'm not sure what that means right now, but
Yeah, we will have to flush that out during our design phase, our definitive design phase. I agree.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi, Joe Brescia, 2 Mountain Rock Lane. As far as the lots themselves, is the intent to leave mature trees on the lot, or is it the plan to clear cut them? Number one question. And then the second question is this builder intending to build all of the houses himself, or is he planning on selling off lots and having other people build houses?
There is no plan to clear cut the lots. There would be clearing to accommodate houses and yards. And 2, at this point in time, it is the applicant's intention to build all the houses. Market conditions may change, but as of now, that is the plan.
And is he planning on, I mean, again, I know market conditions will rule, but is he looking to build to order or spec?
Probably a mixture of the two. You know, typically on a project like this, you might build a spec house to get people to realize that houses are really being built. And then after that, you know, it may be custom construction. But again, that's all market driven. It's hard to say.
Sally Vesti, 9 Frederickson Road. Just an observation. Frederickson Road's a non-conforming street, as we all have heard that for months. And there's 5 lots that you've chosen to put on that. It's a pretty narrow road with a kind of a hairpin curve halfway down. I live about halfway down. And Mountain Rock is more of a, or coming off of Oak View Trail, I guess I should say, is more of a subdivision that can handle more traffic. Is there any rationale as to why you put 5 houses on a narrow, tougher road and 4 on the other, or?
Well, the rationale was, it revolves around kind of the shape of the property. So the property has, you know, a fair amount of direct frontage on Frederickson. So one of these lots is on the already built portion of Frederickson. So if you take that out of the mix, you've got 8 houses. And, you know, we have basically the shortest possible cul-de-sac here. So, you know, rather than dragging Road B further down and making these closer and then ending up with a strange turnaround on Road A, it just fell out that it made the most sense to divide the property in half, and you basically get 4 down here and 4 up here.
Anybody else? Yes.
I'm Colleen Brescia, 2 Mountain Rock Lane. How does it work with the Conservation Board now? I know we have a meeting next week. How do you guys communicate any questions that they might have, and how does that all work? I'm just kind of trying to get
Well, the meeting next week is to, we've submitted a request for the commission to approve the boundary of the wetland resource areas on the property. Once the commission does that, the location of those resource areas is established for design purposes, and if we're not working within 100 feet of those areas, we don't need to go to the Conservation Commission for the definitive design phase. So, and that is my expectation, that we will not be proposing any work for the roadway or roadway infrastructure within buffer zones or resource areas, and that we will not need a notice of intent through the Conservation Commission for the subdivision itself, and quite honestly, not for the lots either, is my expectation. So that hearing process that we will have next week and may go another meeting is basically not to talk about the proposed development. It is strictly to establish the boundaries of this wetland resource area and this wetland resource area. And that's done through field observation. The agent looks at it and confirms the delineation that the applicant has put forward. And then, of course, the Conservation Commission, if we don't file a notice of intent, they will comment like every other board in town does when we do file our other applications with this board.
Anybody else? Okay, right over here.
Jeremy Sink, 14 Frederickson. After these are split up, I'll be the largest landowner off of Frederickson. So I'm particularly concerned with open space and commend you guys for preserving that open area. Just wanted to say thanks for that. Also, am particularly concerned with preserving the character of that neighborhood. And what's alarming to me is what appears to be intent for the future connection of those roads by giving the town this small parcel. So my question is, any alternatives, or what alternatives have been considered to deeding that space to the town?
Well, I mean, we've looked at half a dozen alternatives at this point. The desire that we're picking up on from the board, the sense of the board, is that while there is no intention to connect these roads in the foreseeable future, that they want that ability if 20 years from now or 30 years from now something changes and all of a sudden the town as a whole wants those roads connected. The town doesn't want to be in a position where they can't do it. So as the chairman indicated, just because we're deeding a parcel to the town doesn't mean the road gets built. There would be public hearings. The Board of Selectmen would have to act on it. It would require a lot of input, I'm sure, from the townspeople.
As a suggestion, you mentioned putting the easement between Lot 7 and 6 to access the open space?
Yes.
Could that small parcel be considered some kind of addition to that open space? Some kind of a public access and egress to get to that?
Yeah, we're going to explore that. How we access the open space is yet to be established, but yes. I mean, that is my understanding. The board wants it accessible to the public at large.
Mm-hmm. So what would be in between those cul-de-sacs, or what's the proposal at this point?
That has yet to be decided, really.
There's no plan for that yet.
And when would that plan come?
When he does the definitive plan, that's when it will all be discussed.
Okay.
That's when all the details happen. These are not detailed plans.
Understood.
Jane Flynn, 26 Frederickson. So I think I missed the point on the definition of a cut-through. So I thought I heard you say that the reason why we need to leave it optional is because that's the definition of a cut-through in the town?
Huh?
That you, of a cul-de-sac in the town?
Oh.
That you need the option for a cut-through?
We always require, if there's adjacent land, we always require access to that adjacent land at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's in our rules and regulations.
Okay. Because I moved here a year and a half ago because I thought I was on a cul-de-sac, and does it mean every cul-de-sac in Norfolk has the option of being a cut-through?
If it does not abut buildable land, then there'll be no access point because there's no reason to put it there. But if it abuts buildable land, there will always be a parcel that is left to be able to extend the roadway.
Okay.
There's many, many, many roadways around here that have been built through.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
John Burke, 30 Frederickson. I'm just wondering, on that parcel that's deeded to the town, during construction, it's going to be torn up. We already know to put pipes underneath. And I can imagine that construction vehicles are going to be going from Road B down to Road A and back and forth through that sliver. And I'm just wondering if it can have a condition that when the project is finished, that is restored, so that it's not left as a gravel road through there.
We're amenable to whatever form the board wants that parcel to be. So that is really a town decision. If they want it to be loaned and seeded, we'll do that. If they want us to plant bushes in there, we'll do that. If they want a gravel road with a gate on it, we'll do that. So it's really, the board's going to decide what they think is most appropriate for that.
Right.
And we will follow their direction.
And I understand what Steve just said, but if that parcel, that sliver, were part of Lot 7, the town could always take that by eminent domain and connect the roads, which would be a little more difficult, I would think, than having it already deeded to the town and having the selectmen authorize the cut-through.
Again, that would be at the discretion of the board.
It would be significantly more difficult for the
And
town
that's
to
the
put
whole
the road.
point. Significantly more difficult. I think everybody here wants that.
Which brings to mind, you classify that land a certain way, so that little connection can't be classified as open space.
Right.
So you'll have to have a special deed section to transfer that over as just
Right.
unused land.
Unencumbered land, yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Just in terms of the detailed plan, the final plan, like, where do we go from here? When, I don't really understand the whole process.
So
Like,
We'll
is
be
there a vote?
scheduling it. We'll be scheduling. They'll know approximately when they'll want to be coming in.
Okay.
We'll set the schedule. You'll hear it tonight. It's probably the only notification, or does it start
No,
with
we-
a mailed?
It starts with
You get a mailed notification again when it starts over.
Right. We have to file a special permit application and a definitive subdivision application. So you'll get a notice for each one of those applications.
But basically, the project is moving forward. Is that what, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
confused. This is
Yeah.
definitely moving forward.
It appears to be. We don't know yet. When it gets on the schedule, when they get their applications in and it gets on the schedule. I doubt it. How long do you think it will be before you start coming back with the definitive plan? The roadway is the only thing that you'd be worrying about right now. You're not going to be seeing houses up there for a long time. Probably a year. Is it? Do you think it'll be a year?
Here's my thought on the process going forward. I think what we're going to do is track the definitive application and the special permit together. I'll probably file the special permit application first because it's less detailed information to be provided with the application, but then I think I would follow up fairly quickly with a definitive application. So my thought is within the next 6 to 8 weeks, both of those applications are before the board, is my hope. And then we have to go through the permitting process, which, as we've just been through, takes some time. And only after this board has rendered its final decision on both of those applications can the applicant go forward with the construction of the roads, which happens first. They have to finish the roads to a reasonable standard before they can start any houses. So it is conceivable that road construction could start at the end of this year, depending on how the process goes. It might also start the beginning of next year, depending on how the process goes.
I have one other question. And I apologize, I'm not like an expert in this. I've heard a lot of discussion about protected land back there and vernal ponds and stuff like that. And that's why I'm confused that the Conservation Board doesn't work in conjunction with the Planning Board before you start putting a road in to determine if it is a protected area.
Well, that is the point of the hearing next week.
Okay, so that, from what you said before, I thought that wouldn't affect the road.
No, that's the application well, I'm saying to you that the work that we are proposing here is nowhere near the resource areas. So the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction under their local bylaw and under the Wetlands Protection Act for these resource areas, these wetland resource areas, and a buffer zone around them. If you're working beyond those buffer zones, then you don't need a permit from them. That doesn't mean they're not involved. They're absolutely involved. Next week's hearing is just one part of that process for the Conservation Commission.
Now, if there were vernal pools in there, we'd know about those already, right? Huh?
There's a pond there and a stream.
But if there were vernal pools, we'd know about them long in advance, yeah.
Ponds, you can
Well,
walk.
I don't
walk the
think so.
property.
Vernal pools are designated.
That's,
The resource areas are nowhere near this project. Conservation has no jurisdiction, not even close to where they're working. If there's a vernal pool, it's down by the pond or the river, and it's hundreds of feet away from where they're working, so there's no jurisdiction.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions?
Uh, Microphone, please.
Jane Flynn, 26 Ferguson. When you said you'll get notified, my understanding is only certain people on our street have gotten notified. You have to be in a butter or something, like
An
how will
abutter
we
or an
know?
abutter to an abutter.
Okay. And when would we know that you would be voting? We have to look online and just see what the agenda is? When will we know you'd take a vote?
You'd have to be at the meetings because it all progresses.
So it could happen that it could happen at a meeting we come to, and you wouldn't know that you'd be voting at the next meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So, we're going to close this. We're all done? Does somebody want to make that motion?
We have a date for the next one?
Well, they haven't got their application in yet, so can't establish a date, right?
so we'd be closing the preliminary application tonight.
Just the
And then we'll
preliminary,
file
yeah.
the new applications, and then new hearings would be scheduled.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Took a while, what we got there.
Yeah. Did we miss anything?
We should.
Did we miss anything?
This is crazy.
There's a lot of confusion about process.
Because it's preliminary as opposed to.
I think it's crazy. It's just crazy. I mean, the highway department over time will improve Frederickson. It'll all get fixed. I just don't get it. Why leave it like this?
When they say anything.
But we've done it before. We've done it before. We've broken through on
Biggest thing was when Tom's first review about this as a primary road.
Small.
The same traffic as 50 lot subdivision, that's what really started. And then with the
Came in
narrow
in maybe
bigger
2004,
road,
2005. Not a single.
I remember playing it.
There you go.
It's not going to be a lot of traffic. Why would anyone drive down Frederickson unless they have
I say to my wife,
You know what I mean?
I have to go into this field.
Oh, okay.
Well,
let's-
what you do, we're tossing a hot potato.
We
to the
shouldn't be
selectmen.
tossing it. We shouldn't be tossing it. We should just grab it
Listen,
and run with
there
it.
is some, there is.
Not a big deal.
Justice in the world because there's a
Right.
selectman who lives up there.
Right.
We do have another hot potato coming now.
Yeah, we do.
Quick whiz.
All right.
But if the drive goes there, and the entrance, trail comes in this way, depends on where the trail needs to be on the
You get all dressed up.
I don't know where it needs to be on the land.
But that's a good place for it, right between the cul-de-sacs, if they can get it
Yeah.
in there.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like it's right along that ridge line, right where the,
And there's always a
It would
question
be
of
nice to
privacy.
it would actually be kind of nice to bring it in on this side of the ridge and then let you climb up if you wanted,
and
right?
we should be having that road go through. This is crazy, holding this hot potato for
Here, you're already on.
They're everywhere. I got one stuck to my shoe this morning.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think it's perfect going in right here.
Yes.
Everybody up in 214, that would have been horrible.
Where's the red light on this?
It's easier to do it. You just hold that down.
They'll
It's not
know.
built, and then it's really-
They'll know that that access point is there when they buy their house.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Although they'll do what everyone else tries to do, and they'll try to like grow their lawn onto
Those new
it and try to
glasses,
control it.
some of these, new glasses aren't gonna be a destination, it's gonna be people that live in the neighborhood.
I get like 20 or
Right.
30.
I might
come
walk
in
over
jackets
there.
on. That's what I'm wearing.
No one does that. I go into these open spaces because I can walk to a
Your
lot
wife
of
is
them.
buying the stylish ones now.
Alex?
There's not that much space to really go and explore.
You know all about style, don't kid me.
All right.
But
Toils
you
and
should,
Farm.
you should have some
Let's
kind
see.
of loop still.
Is Walter almost back? Oh,
I mean,
okay.
we explore in here now on our little nature walk, so we're going.
Incidentally, Steve.
What's that?
Hey, your daughter, yeah, she's,
What's that? Made
Made great progress on this.
Future planning board
well.
member.
I guess.
So far, anyway. Things come up.
Yes, we recruit our planning board. Very young age, we have to, because there's such a limited pool of people that are willing
Okay,
to.
well.
Such a tough job.
Okay, we're open. We're ready to reopen the Toils and Farm Fox Run subdivision hearing.
Pictures of my daughter
This
on
is
the
a
farm.
a hearing for a
Those slow walks.
modification.
Yeah, she was about this big. She was-
These goes to the end.
Hi there.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Rosati from Chandra Associates. Been a little while since we've been here before, and the last time we were here, we were talking about the diversion of the upper portion of Warren Drive onto Lot 4 with a detention basin on Lot 4. And we were talking about landscaping, and we also were talking about possible other alternatives for dealing with the water besides coming onto Lot 4. And during this time that we've been away from the board, we have come up with an alternative other than putting the water into a basin on Lot 4, which involves taking the same watershed that we were going to put on Lot 4 and piping it into the open space behind the subdivision located in this area. To accomplish this, we needed to approach some homeowners along this side of Warren Drive, and we were able to reach an agreement with these two homeowners to provide a drainage easement into the open space from the subdivision. So the situation on Maple Street is going to be similar. Sorry?
Who owns the open space?
The town does. So the situation is going to be similar as it was down here. Instead of the flow coming this way, it's going to head in this direction, which is the original intent for in the original design for the subdivision. All this water from Warren Drive was to feed this wetland. Basically, what we're going to do is split it in half. This being one point and this being the other. So what we had to do was, you know, we've had a number of significant snowstorms, and we were able to topo this area. We weren't able to delineate the actual edge of wetland, but we had Mickey Marcus look at the area once we staked this out to see that the wetlands were more than 100 feet away, and he was able to comfortably do that, and that letter is packets that I submitted to you. So we believe we're about 175 feet away from the wetlands with the work, and possibly even more. So this will involve taking the catch basins and everything above from here into the open space, just coming to daylight at this point in the open space, and then swaling the water with a riprap swale down to this area of the open space. And the reason we've chose this area, you can see that this is very flat, not many contours at all in this area. Any discharge in this area would probably lead to future erosion towards the wetland, and we wanted to avoid that. So that's why this kind of comes around. And you can see that it's in an arc, because this area right here where the contours are closest is definitely rock. So we're trying to avoid the shallow ledge and bring it around. So when we originally filed for the modification, we asked you to also consider the relocation of Lot 4. Now, even though we're not proposing a building on Lot 4, I mean a pond on Lot 4, we're still desired for the board to consider moving Lot 4 and as mitigation for something like this, that we would offer Lot 4 with a conservation restriction on it. So we would still be pursuing moving Lot 4 to the other side of the subdivision outside of this watershed. We think that would satisfy all the parties involved in the subdivision as far as having a house behind them and development, a pond or any type of drainage on that lot in the future.
In the original design, which had a pond or retention basin on that site before it was eliminated, where was Lot 4?
When the pond was proposed I believe in the other subdivision you're referring to, there was actually a road that was coming down onto Lot 4. There was actually a road in this area, and the pond was at the bottom of the road. So they eliminated the road.
Was there a buildable lot on that road?
Yeah, there was a number of lots on that road coming down to this area. And they did away with the pond and the road and put these 3 long-necked road lots on here.
So is the decision or the request to relocate Lot 4 in response to neighbor feedback?
Yes. It's also in response to, it's not something that we would need to develop, and we'd like to develop Lot 4, but we still have a significant driveway. We still have a house that needs to go on Lot 4, which may involve some type of mitigation for runoff because it's such a long driveway. So in order to avoid that, we would just offer that as open space or some type of...
So you've checked with the Pulte folks and they're agreeing to the conservation restriction?
That's correct.
Just so you guys know, at one of our meetings, when they go to put drainage in open space, it requires 2 things. It requires approval from the selectmen, which I've talked to Jack Hathaway months before they started on this endeavor, and with that requires some type of a quid pro quo for using open space for the town. Secondly, this open space is managed by the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commission would have to sign off on that. And how the situation works is if we let them go back and build that lot, down the road, if that lot stayed vacant and somebody buys it later, and the drainage on that lot is very significant. And what would happen was if somebody bought that lot and built the house down the road, if the Pulte folks sold it or whatever, somebody could build that house out and ignore the drainage calcs. They wouldn't be required to submit it to the town, and they could have a massive runoff going down there into the wells in the back. So as we went further on this thing, I asked our board informally that they would consider using the open space that we still control and get as an offset a conservation restriction on that land, which means that we wouldn't own it, the town wouldn't own it. What the Pulte folks want to do with it is up to them, but no one could ever build on that land. And as a result, the drainage going down there now, and I see where the problems come. When you walk down there, it is sopping wet in the neighbors' backyards. It's wet, and I went down after the snow had melted, and the runoff is more than significant. To the matter of fact, there's even a handmade trench that was dug from the electric box because I think the water was flooding the electric transformer there. So this would just ensure, and this still has to have a vote by the selectmen to let them use the open space for something in return, and I believe a vote of the Conservation Commission. So the big hurdle was on the Pulte folks' part was to walk it and have that lot have a restriction put on it so no future building could ever be done there. And number 2.
You're talking Lot 4?
Yes, yes. So that, and what's done with that, whether that's split up amongst the neighbors, because they're still gonna have technically a buildable lot with a tax base, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever they do is out of our jurisdiction, but we want to know that nobody comes in after the fact, because if a house was on that lot now, that would still need a significant basin for that runoff, just for that lot.
That's what I was
And
trying to
again,
indicate with the
we would
driveway.
have, the town would have no jurisdiction from a sole builder going in buying that. It would never have to comply with any drainage, which is the scary part. So I was happy that they agreed to that, and hopefully this can move forward then.
So the swale, bringing it down to the open space, and it's just gonna recharge, is it gonna collect in its own basin down there, or what's the end game after it travels the swale?
Yes.
Could you give us a sense of the distance of that too? I can't tell the scale of the map.
Yeah, this is, I think this is 60 scale, but this from here to here is 450 feet. So this is about 300 feet here.
In the middle of the woods.
So,
And where is the perforated pipe, Mike? Could you point out where the perforated pipe starts the
Yeah, so-
infiltration process?
we did want to, in our discussions with the DPW and with staff, we did want to try to encourage as much recharge as we could. So from this manhole to the discharge point, this is perforated pipe, and this pipe is laid at minimum slope. The channel itself coming down the hill is on average 6%. It can be, in some spots it's close to 10 in one small area here, but we ended up flattening it to 8% in the latest review by your consultant. And then this from here to here is a 0.5%, which is basically flat. And at the end of this, the last 80 feet of this trench is our level spreader. So we've designed the swale. Second. We've designed the swale so that we would encourage recharge in the swale itself, and at the very end, at the last, where the level spreader is, that would be this curb that you see here. We are also proposing a leaching trench, if you want to call it that, for this whole length, so that the water, any water coming down through here would then have to pool here, and then it would spill over onto the ground from the level spreader. So it would back up to this point and then over, and then it would flow in this direction here. And this, like I said, if you went out and walked this, this is an extremely flat area, and that's where we really wanted to have the water discharge, instead of somewhere on a slope here, which would probably concentrate again as soon as we let it go and cause some erosion issues, and we didn't want to have that.
Mike, do you have a larger plan that puts this into context as far as the larger subdivision at full build-out? A few of us have spent some time walking out there, and I'm just trying to get some perspective in terms of where exactly this area is
And
of
where's the
surface.
horse farm,
So this is the watershed map that we were using to show that, this is the portion of Warren Drive that's going to flow down and into this area. So the area we're talking about is here. Unfortunately, the drawings you have don't show any topography or anything here. But the horse farm, the horse with the stalls and the new track is in this area here. And Maple Street, where the discharge is here. So this would be located right in the center here.
So at the pump station at the bottom of Warren, there's access to the conservation land along the back side of those parcels that you've already got homes in place there. And I believe there's some alternative access as well further up Warren Drive, but can you put that into context as far as that particular access to the conservation land in terms of these waters that are now going to be discharged into that area?
So maybe this one
I think
helps.
that, Jeff, is 5 houses up on the left from the pump station,
It's 5 houses further up
up at
Warren.
Maple Street. From Maple Street, you go up 5 houses on the left, I think it's right in there, it's gonna go through the 2 lot lines.
Further up Maple?
It's
or
right
Warren?
here.
There he is. He's
This
got
is
it.
Maple
here's
to
Maple
Warren,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the easement that we're placing is here.
And where's the easement to
Oh, it's only
access
two
the
houses
trails,
up.
he's wondering,
Easement to access the trails.
the conservation
Oh,
land,
that's
okay.
right?
that
down
would be-
below,
That would
isn't
be
it?
up here.
Or is
It's
it
down
next
below,
to
isn't it?
84?
Where the station.
Pump station is right here.
You have
This
one
is-
there,
Right, and I didn't know that was access to open space. I'm sorry, I wasn't involved in that. But yeah, that's the pump station, the water booster station, and I believe there's a trail that comes off the horse farm area that runs down through here.
Yeah.
And this area right in here is open field, and this level spreader, there's a path that runs through here and down, actually runs down to Maple Street. I've shown that on this drawing here. There's a portion of the path right here that runs down through here, and this goes down by the wetland and down to Maple Street here. So the field area is somewhere approximately right here. This is very close to the end of it, very close to the field.
Did he just say that this, this is going to cross an existing path?
Yes, this will cross the path one spot right here. And that was the other reason for bringing it all the way down here. If we brought it anywhere above here, then this water would flow over the path, and we didn't want to have that happen. So there is one spot where the channel, and this channel is very broad, it's only 2 feet deep, and you can easily pass right over it.
And in terms of where the horse farm is in
Mhm.
proximity to that, can you show me that again?
Okay, so on this bigger plan, this lot 72 is that, right here. And you can see in this plan, the edge of it right here. This is the driveway, the new driveway going down to it. And this was a path of some sort, that easement that was on lot 72 to get access into the town's land, which is right here, this boundary right here.
So where's the old driveway to the horse farm? Just because that's what some of us know from walking the property.
Let me see if I can.
It's a point of reference.
The field across the street from it, the grass,
Mhm.
that's the Concom property.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where the old path was. Howard recently created a riding path around the wetland that's right here, and it runs here, and there's access to it here,
Another driveway.
and the driveway that comes in down to it now is right here. I don't know if that's giving you the
Yeah, I guess,
perspective.
rather than just ask the question, I'll just be upfront with you in terms of, those of us that walk the property, and some of that open space conservation land, at various times of the year, it's a bit challenged because it gets pretty wet in there, and what I just don't know is whether or not this is gonna contribute to, perhaps the inability to use any of that conservation land. That the idea was, if you recall, Andrea, at one point we had some pretty substantial trails and concepts. So I just don't know in terms of the volume of water that's being put in there. I mean, I can appreciate the fact that it solves the problem with the abutters, and it's probably the right direction to go, but I'm just trying to understand where this water's gonna go and what the implications are of putting it there.
So I can tell you in this drawing here that the water is going to end up moving this way, in this direction. If you went out there, there's nothing really here as far as trails or anything like that. But I just don't know what your future plan might be. And if there were something to be crossed, I'm sure some type of bridge or boardwalk or something. I mean, it's not going to be a lot of flow.
You're going to need that for the skiers.
What range, what percentage of the runoff is actually going to infiltrate before it even gets to the level spreader?
I don't know if I could answer that question, John. but-
Majority of it.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the day-to-day storms, the 100-year storm, that's probably not going to really
Right,
be
I
affected
understand.
by it.
Yeah.
Just to set some context, Jeff, this is the open space that already existed with the town. So this wasn't part of the trail network
Right.
that we were creating as a planning board. It might have been talked about through Concom. And there've always been trails through the area to get to this property, but it wasn't part of the trail system that we were agonizing over.
All of this water goes towards a pond that's adjacent to this whole parcel. There's a pond over there that's privately owned. Everyone around it owns parts of the pond,
Well, I
but
think we
it's all
saw it.
flowing in that
Right,
direction.
Michelle, when we walked the property, a few of us,
On
there's a
Maple
long
Street?
history here in terms of
No,
trying
we
to
were in off of
find.
the horse farm and walking all down right in through this
The
area.
ag
It's a very
pond.
tough place to walk.
It's basically
Very
on the
tough.
same property of, Mr. Bailey in terms of the
Okay.
horse farm. There's a
Yeah,
pond
that
there
pond.
and such, and I
That
think he
pond.
was
Okay.
proposing doing something around the pond with a
Yeah.
driveway and such, but I'm just trying to understand, so you have that on one in one place, and then separately, we had an existing driveway, which, on the fringe of that area where there was some parking for the stable, it's very wet. I mean, if you go
Yeah.
there this time of year, I'm sure it's very wet, and I just don't know in terms of where this water is discharging, how it's gonna affect the surface water in that area.
Well, they do
That's
have
really the
high
question.
ground there,
I
though, that's
understand what he's saying.
adjacent to.
Yeah, I think the area you're referring to
Driveway.
is somewhere in this area here.
Yeah,
Might be
it-
closer
Yeah.
to the horse farm.
Where,
You're further,
Yeah,
okay,
it may not
okay.
have been that deep.
So where's there's the bridge, the stone, there's a
Stone
stone
bridge.
bridge and trails
It's
and,
inside,
That's-
it's
yeah,
inside the
it's over on the other
tables.
side.
yes, maybe I have that here.
Yeah, it's on that side of the property.
I mean, I'm feeling like I know too much, maybe to,
Just
just
enough
isn't
to be
good.
It's a lovely property.
So I think the bridge you're referring to might be right here. There's a restriction in this vast wetland system here
Yeah.
that comes down right into here. And I believe there are trails running down through here,
Yeah.
up to the back of this house. I think I remember walking up through here.
And where's the discharge?
Discharge is going to be over here.
Okay, okay.
And I do see an old driveway right here on this plan that there used to be looks like almost like a horse track right here. Was that near where you were talking about?
There was a paddock there.
Paddock here, and then it came right along the lot line here, and this is the barn right here.
No, we were further over to the right.
So we would be in this area over here. So this would be cleared, the field area is right here, and then it becomes wooded somewhere right in here.
Looks like a good place to put water to me.
So I would love to hear from the engineer on the calculations
So
of
I-
discharge and volume.
I'm not sure if we really talked in much detail about the location or the location we were proposing for Lot 4. I know we touched on it, but,
General, I think it was
Yeah, you touched
conceptual.
on it. Yeah.
right, so this is the area where we're talking about, which would be, looking at this plan here, it would be right in this area here, overlooking the fields that you were talking about and the trails. So we have enough extra area in this little block, if you will, to create the 20,000 square foot lot.
Create an extra lot, an additional lot from what your original plan was.
Yeah, so the Lot 4 is something like an acre or something maybe a little more than that. I don't know off the top of my head, but we'd be swapping that for a 20,000 square foot lot.
And where are the original lines and the new lines?
The red lines are the original lines,
Okay,
Steve.
and how many are there?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this product, there will be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I recall
Are
that
any of those,
discussion.
have we released any of those? Are any of those developed yet?
We haven't released
Nothing-
it.
nothing
Is the
yet.
road even finished?
No.
I think we held off on doing any with this because we had this in our back pocket, what we were going to do. And I think there was some talk of releasing the 2 end ones because the houses on those 2 lots wasn't going to change. It was just the lines around them were going to change. So this house could have been constructed and that one could have been constructed without, and you would have flexibility to put either 3 or 2 houses between them.
See, there's two houses already there?
No, he's
No,
saying
no,
could.
you could have released these.
Could have, oh, I
Without
see, and then
including his
decide,
plan.
okay, oh, okay,
Right.
okay, okay.
If we were so inclined to release lots.
We're gonna
Yeah.
have him go over this whole thing. What happens if, since this water handling goes outside our jurisdiction, goes into Concom's and probably the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction, should we be reviewing it? We should review it for structure and everything else, even
You
though
mean
it's
this-
outside of the subdivision?
This swale,
Well, they've got some structures in there, the whole pipe and everything else.
well, the pipe and the level spreader is just, it's not a structure per se, it's just built for the water overflow, but the conservation and this project here has been using the planning board engineers not to double charge.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
We bring
you've
their
got everything-
reports back to the
So
conservation, yes.
they've seen everything that you've reported. Oh, okay, that
Yes,
worked
yes.
out
We've
well.
actually seen this plan, Janet's had this plan for a couple of weeks, so, yes. So whatever the consultant here goes with, that's what we're counting as being a proper drainage system.
So now it's your turn.
Okay.
That's a
But
good
ju-
lead-in.
But just a point, I mean, this is a formal process, then the applicant would need an easement, a drainage easement from the town to
Yes.
put drainage, so this is a
Yep.
formal process. But yeah, I agree, that's the next step, is to hear from our engineer.
We received some plans dated April 6th, which is basically the plan that was shown, which we reviewed and supplied a letter to the board dated April 10th. Subsequent to that, today we received responses to our comments. We had a chance to go through them quickly. We received them this afternoon, so.
Oh.
So
Really?
I can go through each one of our comments and summarize it, and
It's in beds before
Oh.
and then their response to beta.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So what we call comment G1 concern the calculations for the capacity of the swale, which were correct in that the capacity is correct for the amount of flow that is anticipated to go down there. Our concern was that was based on the flattest part of the swale, and in the steepest part of the swale, you're going to see higher velocities, which has the potential for erosion. If the stone used in the swale is not large enough, it has the potential to start to wash out that stone over time. So we suggested that the applicant go back and review that, which in their letter dated yesterday, their responses, they did review it, and they've made modifications to increase the size of the stone in the swale, as well as make some minor modifications to the slope to reduce the slope a little bit. We looked at those calculations. We would agree they've increased the size from what's called 6-inch minus, so basically the biggest stone is 6 inches, to something where the average size stone is 8 inches. So you'll have stone that's greater than 8 inches and some less, which is proper for the velocities of the flow we expect to see in that swale. The next comment, so we would agree with the revisions they've made there. The next comment, G2, talked about the perforated pipe, that last section of pipe before it discharges into the swale. Our original comment was we weren't sure what the intent was and whether it was just something that was mistakenly labeled on the plan. After understanding what the town is looking for, we have no objection to it. It makes sense. We're not sure how much water is really going to be siphoned off through there, but it certainly won't hurt. It can only help. The next two comments, G3 and G4, were concerns about the subsurface conditions, particularly trenching for the pipe between the two houses. We expected, based on what we've seen of the subdivision information, there to be ledge there. I think the applicant in their response today acknowledged that there's ledge very close to the surface. There's trenching between the houses. It's going to be up to 10 feet deep to install the pipe. So the applicants indicated that they don't intend to blast, that they expect that based on the construction of the houses on either side, where I think there was blasting that was done for those foundations, that rock is probably fissured and can be more easily removed. We still have some concerns. Even without blasting, there's going to be vibration trying to remove that rock. We would certainly suggest for both the protection of the homeowners, the contractors, and the town, that a pre-excavation survey be done of those houses. Make sure there's no cracks, no interior wall conditions where somebody can come back afterwards and say the work that was done for the excavation of the pipe caused damage to those houses.
So you guys should do a videotape of the abutting houses, just like, then if you have to blast, it's
Right.
done anyway.
It would be
Yeah,
the same as a
Same process.
pre-blast survey.
Yeah.
No problem with that.
The next comment, G5, concerns as we go a little bit further past those houses, the excavation goes through a ridge, a mound of earth. And again, similar concerns. We expect there's probably going to be ledge. The excavation, at least for a portion of that, is much deeper, up to almost 30 feet deep. So I think we probably need a little bit more detail on how that's going to happen. I know in the responses today, it was talked about tapering the slope back, which creates an excavation at the top as wide as 50 feet, using, I think you were talking about stacked trench boxes and possibly some sheeting. I think just as much as you can understand at this point with what the subsurface conditions are, maybe a little bit more detail. Are you talking about driving the sheeting? Are you talking about leaving it in place and cutting it off?
Yeah, I was going to suggest if the board was, if it was acceptable, maybe to submit that plan prior to construction, where I've had the contractor chosen and he can give me more detail of how he plans on actually doing this, instead of me handcuffing him on how I think it should be done. If that's acceptable with you, that would be acceptable to us.
Because he should have at least a couple of benches in there, Mike, for any rocks that are coming
Yeah,
down.
the way I described it in the,
Talking- If it's a 5-foot wide trench, you're probably talking 40 feet wide and stepping it down with benches so no rocks go down into the,
yeah, in my
box.
response, I indicated that we were going to have a bench that was 12 feet wide, 15 feet wide. That would be about 10 or 12 feet below the surface. And then from that depth, we could use a double trench box to get us to the final elevation. Fortunately, it's right at that manhole A4 that we have the deepest part, and the ledge is falling off quick in both directions. One is the back of the lots, the side slope of the back of the lots, and the other is this face right here. So we're coming up to it here, and then we're coming right back down again. So it's really one small area of this line. But if that would be acceptable to the board, I'd like to work it that way.
I think from our perspective, that makes sense.
Review and approval.
Yeah, I think you want to have that detail, but it makes sense to have the contractor that's going to do the work provide that.
I don't think you have any opposition on that one.
Okay.
The next comment was merely a typo on the plan regarding the rim elevation for manhole A5. That's been corrected. G7 concerns the water quality unit that's proposed right off of Warren Drive. It's a Vortechnics unit that's being proposed. The previous plan, I think it had a storm scepter unit. And this speaks to what we discussed before about the ability to clean that with a clamshell. The recent submission had the calculations regarding the TSS removal and the flow rates. So I think we're in agreement there that works. That's the proper unit.
Where is the water quality unit?
We have proposed it right along the back of the sidewalk, right next to the road, so it'd be easy.
There's not one already in that location?
No, there isn't. The water quality unit that was dealing with this section of Warren Drive is at the end of the hill, so we're not even going to get to that with this design.
G8 concerned installation of some yard drains. one in each of the backyards of the adjacent houses. It wasn't clear in the first submission why those were being installed. The response we received today indicates there's some standing water potentially back there. As part of the negotiations to get the easement, apparently the homeowners asked for those to help drain their backyard. From that standpoint, we see no issue. It's a small amount of water being added to the system, and there's more than enough capacity in the system that's proposed to handle that. G9 really concerns the impact of going through the open space in the woods and the amount of trees that will need to be removed, and also the potential for erosion, particularly during construction. The revised plans that we received today do have erosion controls on there now, and also show the limits of the impact. I don't know if you have a feel, we don't, for how many trees are going to be removed.
I can tell you this, we had, when we designed this, I had my surveyor stake the location so I could go and view where it was and tweak it relative to major trees. So I can try to explain this to you. Right here, there's a triple oak that's pretty substantial, and unfortunately, because this is where the deepest cuts are, I couldn't move the drain line anywhere to avoid that. So, but I was able to move this so that when we come down through here, there is no major tree that would have to come down. It would all be saplings, and it's mostly white pine. Same thing with the swale. As we get to the path, I don't think there's any major trees that need to come down here. That's how it kind of bends the way it does. Where we do get some significant trees is on the downside of the path, and I would estimate it's probably 8 to 10, but I would have to flag them and count them for. If that's a concern, I can do that and let you know what that would be. But again, the reason for the swale being here is that we didn't want to put it on the upside of the swale because we didn't want to impact the path.
I'm not as familiar with this type of a drainage system as I am with the standard detention basins. And I know that those fill up a lot with trees and shrubs and everything else, and actually look kind of natural after a period of time. But what happens in the middle of the woods like this? And you said it's pretty thick with pines down at the lower section where it flattens out. I mean, what happens over time in someplace like, in an area like that? Does that just get completely clogged up with pine trees and everything?
So, you know, you would expect that the riprap, the pine needles would get wedged down into the top part of the riprap. And so, you know, if the maintenance for the swale in our long-term plan would be somebody needs to inspect it to see that there isn't clogging taking place, and if there is, that the clog needs to be removed. One of the other advantages to having the deep trench where the water is eventually going to end up is that it would take a significant amount of pine needles or whatever to clog that up. So there would be a long time in between maintenance, if you will, of that channel.
What would be the recommended frequency of inspection?
I can tell you that. I think it's quarterly.
No, I get it. Highway department up there,
4 times a year.
Oh. All right.
Again, G10 complements G9, talks about the potential for erosion. That's been addressed with an erosion control system during construction. G11 speaks to what we were just talking about, the operations and maintenance plan. It has been updated. We think it makes sense. What's been added in for the Fort Technics unit as well as the swale. Perhaps the only thing we would suggest is language about large storms and inspection in addition to the quarterly inspections after significant rainfall events, that'll be checked as well.
So I misspoke. It does say that here, after 1 inch or more, the swales and the level spreader be inspected.
DPW weighed in on this at all?
Well, that's a question. I mean, who would inspect, I guess? I mean,
So-
once the project is
DPW.
approved
My
and
understanding,
the
Bob,
subdivision is...
has kind of indicated to me that it would be his responsibility to do that, along with the water quality unit. And
Oh, so you've spoken to him about this plan already?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I've been working with Bob and Ray and John, coming up with this over the last month or so.
Does Bob have any comments for us to consider? Does
He
anyone
did
know?
not. He did take a look at the plans. He felt it was, suitable.
Betsy, I'd like to get a comment from Bob if we could, so that we have it as part of the record.
Comment 12 really speaks to, again, some of Concom's potential involvement. This all comes about because of the enforcement order that was initiated at the other discharge point. The numbers all work. The same amount of flow is still going to the same wetland. So from that standpoint, it seems to work, but we just want to raise the point that it was part of the enforcement order, so it should have Concom involvement as well. The point that was already raised, comment G13, the swale does intersect the path at one point. It is fairly shallow, 2 feet deep. It's going to have loose laid stones in it, so it'll be a little more difficult to traverse than the ordinary path. Maybe when you're working in that area, that riprap can be placed a little more carefully and a little more closely to provide a better walking surface.
We could do that. We did that on the other side in Rentham. We had the same deal with the emergency spillway crossing a path, and we placed a rock in that area and compacted it with the backhoe just on the top.
Based on your calculations, how often would you expect water to be running down there?
So, we have this swale that I'm proposing, and the swale, the finished grade of the swale is 2 feet deep, but we have 18 inches of riprap below that surface, if you want to call it that, the top of the rock. So that gives us a tremendous amount of capacity for water to flow underneath our feet without getting wet. I can't tell you exactly what that is. I could estimate it, but it's pretty significant.
I would agree. I think you're going to find that in the frequent storms, smaller rainfall events, you're probably not going to see much flow at all in that swale, certainly as you get down towards the end of it. Like in the larger events, a 25-year storm or something larger, you'll see some flow there.
Yeah.
But there's a significant length of infiltration. In the last comment we had made, G14 really was, again, just calling attention to the fact that this is a town-owned open space parcel. We're not sure of what the language may be regarding that in the process for the town to approve this going through the open space parcel. Again, it sounds like conservation needs to be involved with that as well.
So one of the questions I have on the impact to the neighbors and development is where it's moved now, does it trigger a new set of abutters for notification? So for example, people being impacted by this new location of drainage, have they been notified of this process through the previous abutter notifications? Are they aware of the meetings?
We notified everybody in the subdivision.
Everyone was
Everyone in the
notified.
whole subdivision?
We over-notified, so it's not just that one location, it's the entire subdivision got notified.
Everyone within 300 feet, I think it was.
Yeah, of the subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, this looks like a good solution to a really significant problem that we're in the middle of. Does anyone on the board have any comments? Like, Jeff, do you have any comments?
No, I just, in terms of just understanding any liability to the town, discharging the water and responsibility related to that, I'm not suggesting it's a problem, but it's just something that I don't have a whole lot of experience with, that's all.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the maintenance aspect of it, I'm less concerned about the water discharge with, the topos and the general wooded condition. I feel good about that, but the maintenance of this long-term is something I absolutely would want to hear Bob's commitment to. And then I also just want to make sure we're not pushing the problem to somebody else's backyard. So that's why I asked the question about other neighbors, and it looks like there'll have to be a new easement that's going to have to be deeded. There looks like some other steps. It looks like there's probably been some negotiation about additional landscaping in yards. So I just do want to ensure that we're just not creating a NIMBY somewhere else.
This is a substantial wetland. This wetland goes all along Maple Street.
So I mean, just the two properties they're creating the
Right,
easement
just those two,
there.
but,
Yep,
but
that's
as
more
far as
what I'm talking
creating
about.
anything by putting water back here,
No, I'm less
not
concerned
gonna be
about
an
that.
issue, yeah.
Less concerned about that. More concerned about the maintenance of getting there, and then the impact to those two neighbors, that it just hasn't been pushed on somebody else's lap in terms of owning the problem.
are either of those abutters here that are having the, no?
So that's kind of a concern.
Yeah. Okay. So.
But that's all.
That's it?
Yep.
Well, I would echo your comment that this seems to be a pretty good solution for a problem that was quite contentious for some time, and I'm happy with it.
Excellent. John, no comments? Ray, do you have any comments? Oh, excellent. I'll open it up to the public. Now, if you have any comments, make sure you speak into the microphone and you identify yourself. Any questions or comments? No? Excellent. So how much more do we have to do on this, or can we, we need some more details on this, right? Or do you think it's,
Close the public hearing?
or do you want to, well,
If you
We
can,
would love
Steve,
to get Bob's input, yeah, but.
we're in place of an attorney's letter on this matter, and the attorney's letter missed a couple of the main points. The only one I want to get into is, the timing on this is crucial, because right now the wetland continues to be altered. So the sooner we wrap this up, the sooner they build this, the sooner we alleviate that problem. So time really is of the essence. This has to be, we'd like to move it along as soon as we can get this done with.
excellent. So I'm asking whether or not anyone feels as though there's any reason for holding it open. That's all I'm asking, whether or not there's
Well, I guess
any
let me-
details that haven't come up yet.
Let me ask a question. So, we looked at the plan as far as from Warren over to the point of discharge. In terms of, our engineering council, taking a look at more broadly the impact of this discharge, I think I agree with Steve, it's a big area, so it's probably not a concern, but has anybody viewed it from that more comprehensive perspective as opposed to just to the end of the, discharge spreader?
Well, what I would say in that regard is that we have looked at it from the volume of runoff that's going to the wetland, and that stays the same as in the original subdivision. So in that regard, there wouldn't be any more impacts to the wetland. We certainly haven't looked at downstream, but again, if the same amount of water is going there, you wouldn't expect any increased impacts downstream.
So I guess those of us that are a bit familiar with this, so you've got Maple, you've got Warren, so off of Maple, there's been a asphalt sidewalk that's been installed, and you've got some wetland there, which is, what John discusses when he talks about the modification of the wetland. There's been some riprap installed to try to mitigate any damage, if you will. But that wetland, it extends back off of Maple Street. And to your point, Steve, when you say it's a big area, I think
You know how
that's what
big
you're
it is?
saying.
It
It
goes
goes way back.
beyond Shady Way.
Yep.
There's a big pond
That's-
over there,
yep.
and then a stream comes out of it and goes in front of my house.
So there's the stone bridge back there, it's all part of the same wetland, so whether you're discharging into one side of it or the other side, we're saying it's the same wetland, is that, I just wanna make sure we're on the same page.
But there is no direct discharge. If there was, that would open up a whole other set of issues. All drainage goes to a wetland eventually, so there is no direct discharge to a wetland in the subdivision.
Well, we're talking about level spreaders and
Yeah, but
stuff
it's
like
not
that.
going into the wetland. Going
it's
into a
in our plan.
wetland would set up a whole different set of rules and town meeting votes and this and that. But eventually, all water will run to the wetland, but there's no impact per se on a wetland.
But it's going on to town, basically, at some point, there has to be a drainage easement, and I'm just asking what the implications of that are beyond the point of the level spreader, that's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman,
So-
could I address this point?
Yep.
Maybe I could, maybe it's, so this area here that I have in yellow is the existing area that, from the subdivision that contributed to the vast wetland that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the proposal that you approved and was built currently was designed based upon that happening. What happens, what's currently proposed is it's all coming down into one source right here and creating the issue that we have. Basically, we're doing the same thing, except we're splitting it up and trying to diffuse it. And we think we have accomplished that.
Okay.
So the result down through this area and here has always been the same, and you've already had a few years of experience with it, with all the storms that we have had. This has shown up to be a problem, but we really haven't heard or experienced any problems down in this area, and I don't expect we would.
And the way Maple Street works, Jeff, before, there was an overflow of volume and dirty water into the wetland, altering it. Right now, with the water being taken back and putting in the open space, now there's a normal discharge into the resource area, not affecting the wetland at all, which is how it's supposed to be. So,
All right. Did I see someone look like they wanted to ask a question? No? Okay. So, there's no reason to hold this open then, right? Is there any information that you feel as though we have to take in?
We do
that-
just want to make Bob's, whatever comment is
Right,
part
we
of the
wanna-
record, but
yeah.
it could just be a administrative.
So, does anyone want to close this hearing?
Yeah, just one other point, I think we said it, at some point, we want to make sure the integrity of the underground infrastructure on Warren Drive remains intact, so whatever work is being done to facilitate this, I would think, before that street is approved, I think we talked about making sure that there's some camera work, and I'm not sure how that's gonna manifest itself in terms of lot releases. At one time, we had some conversation about that, so I don't want to confound this discussion, but,
there's a whole schedule on that,
yeah.
Jeff,
Okay.
on cameraing everything and when and how long they have to wait before they actually can put finished coats on.
And does that manifest itself when we do the lot releases? I mean, at some point, it
No,
has to be
no.
part of a formal process here, right?
You've worked it out with the DPW, correct, as far as when things are gonna be cambered, when you can put the finished coat on, et cetera?
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with it, John. I know that Bob and John Ignall from Pulte have discussed that and have a schedule. I can look into it if you want me
Maybe
to.
we can ask Bob McGee to formalize
Yeah.
his agreement, so we know the process to
Yeah,
approve,
that's
to
fine.
check all the infrastructure, so it's all
Okay.
checked.
I mean, as long as it's part of a formal process, a formal action of the board, I'm fine with it, whether it's part of the lot release procedure or what have you. So if we're gonna move forward on this, I wanna make sure that we still have an opportunity to formalize those discussions and
And
those
now they'll
agreements.
have to, when you finish with conservation, you'll have to go formally to the selectmen to get, I forget the state law applicable to using open space, but you'll have to go to the selectmen and present your plan to them. And if your compensation for using the space is to put a conservation restriction on that lot, then they would have to formally accept that to make it all work. As we talked about months ago, that's the final step.
So we're asking Bob McGee to comment on two things.
Mhm.
One of which is the maintenance of this
Right.
drainage system that's being put in, and the other is for the inspection of the existing drainage system on.
And roadways.
And roadways.
And
on-
roadways.
On Warren Drive.
I've actually got three. One would be the drainage plan,
Mhm.
as it was presented tonight, and then those other two that you just mentioned.
All right, so, anyone want to make that motion? Come on,
Motion to close the public hearing for Toils End Farm,
with the condition that,
with the condition that we get the information stated from the Department of Public Works.
excellent. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Incidentally, just for the record, the Pulte folks, during all of our meetings, Mike has done an extraordinary job. The studies we looked at were extremely intense. I mean, bringing the water over the watershed, as we went through multiple calculations, we missed the most simple thing, the gas line there that would be blown up if we ever started blasting. So the work has been really exceptional. It's been a lot of time and money spent on their part, and I'm happy it come to a solution for everybody that works, so thank you for that.
There's gas? Did they bring it over from Renton, is that what they did?
Yeah, so we're never gonna go put the water on the other side of the watershid to be blasted, ripping that to gas line. Which doesn't work, I don't think.
For this next session.
Okay, we're only 2 hours late for the public hearing.
Thanks for working it through.
Zoning articles.
Mr. and Mrs. Connors.
You had to okay it.
Well, we still have more work to do, so.
You're almost there.
We're almost there.
Are you
Considering
looking
what
at with the call it here, as far as the treatment facility and stuff, in terms of making sure that the town is protected?
Good to see you, Bill.
Is that stuff all moving forward?
All right.
With town council, and we got some last remaining comments from her earlier this week. And then we actually ended up having our attorney talk to
Huge. We're very, very happy. As a matter of fact, they were fighting with each other. They both wanted the whole eastment on their lot so they get all the money.
Okay, good, good.
Which talk, huh? That interesting?
Yeah, it is. What did it cost them to put the easement through there? 20 each.
20 per neighbor. Finally.
Yeah, actually, it worked out really well, thanks. You know, a couple of months ago, it looked as though it was all gonna be a disaster. All of a sudden, well, it wasn't all of a sudden, was it?
All of a sudden,
It's always a great indication when no one raises their hand.
Yeah.
That really just says it all, doesn't it?
yeah, it does.
You're a trooper, Nancy. You're a trooper.
Listen, you guys working, you all look tired, you worked all day, making all these decisions and helping the whole town. I should complain though. No.
Hey,
Just waiting for Michelle.
Nancy, where you been? I haven't seen you around recently.
Well, I haven't been out much. I've been stuck on couches and walking chairs. I can't drink after 11.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
You mean you can't tell them the can? We just came home from the food.
Oh, nice.
Wow. You didn't notice it, I've been very disappointed.
Nice tan.
I know. I'm a little jealous.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Get to the fun stuff.
I know.
It's 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, now we're at the point where we're going to have the public hearing for the town meeting zoning articles for the spring town meeting, 2015.
Does John have to read every single one?
I think we can put them in by reference, right? I don't think we have to read the whole thing, right?
I don't think we usually read, we don't usually read the
We don't
whole-
usually read them in, we read them by reference.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're reading the cover page.
Just read the,
Just,
I think there's something, is there something there from the town manager put in comments for each of the articles? I'm not sure I brought my list as far as what they are, but maybe they're not. I was just trying to think of an objective way to describe the articles.
I don't see any comments from
Okay,
that.
okay.
Not what we have.
Although you can just read the articles and then.
I can read the cover page here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Does he have
Right,
to read that whole
and-
thing?
and just read this, and then Ray will go into the detail when he gets to them.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with Chapter 40A of Mass General Laws. The Norfolk Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 14, 2015, at 8 p.m. at Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, to discuss proposed changes to the Norfolk zoning bylaws, which have been submitted to the warrant for the May 12, 2015 annual town meeting. Proposed amendments to the Norfolk zoning bylaws are as follows. 1, to amend the zoning bylaws by adding a new section H5, multi-housing district, to section H, option zoning, or take any other action relative thereto. Number 2, to amend the zoning bylaws, section B, definitions, to include multifamily housing and multifamily development with definitions, or take any other action relative thereto. Number 3, to amend the zoning map to include the multifamily housing district as shown on a map on file with the Norfolk Town Clerk, or take any other action relative to. Number 4, to amend the zoning bylaws by adding section E1H, development of private roads or shared driveways, or take any other action relative thereto. Number 5, to amend the zoning bylaws, section D2C, residential uses, and section D2E, commercial uses, or take any other action relative thereto. Number 6, to authorize the town planner to renumber sections B, H5, E1H, or D2C in the Norfolk zoning bylaw as needed to incorporate approved amendments. Complete copies of the text of the amendments are available for review in the planning board office during the hours of 9 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday.
Okay, Ray, since you're bringing these articles forward, you can present them to us and.
Okay. I'll start with the first one, which is multifamily housing. This bylaw amendment would allow for multifamily housing within the radius of 2,000 feet from the intersection of 115 and the train tracks. What it would allow is housing on a minimum of 2 acres of land, 50 feet of frontage, any existing parcel except for residential subdivisions that were built, I forget the date, it was 1957 was the date when the subdivision regulations came into effect. So anything that was an actual subdivision, platted subdivision, those properties would not be applicable. You would have a maximum number of units of 5 acres, 5 units per acre. You could get a maximum number of units per building of 12. Maximum number of units per development would be limited to 40. And the bedrooms would be not more than 2 on average throughout the whole development. There's a couple of provisions within this bylaw that allows for adaptive reuse and gives you a density bonus of 1 unit if the building is 75 years or older. I know there's not a lot of properties in Norfolk that or in this area that might meet that criteria, but it is an option to maintain some of the historic value within the town. The other one would be to encourage more affordability, and you would get a density bonus of 2 units for any development that goes over up to and over the 25% affordability. You would have to have town water, which most of this area does have. There was an earlier version of this, and I'm not sure if this one has it, but there was a provision in there that talked about sewer. That is not necessary to move forward. Obviously, there's no sewer. That's a quick wrap-up of that. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Ray, I'm just not seeing quickly enough the 12, the 40, the 2-bedroom average. I saw the...
Bottom of page 2 is...
Okay,
Yeah,
there's
it's
the
kinda buried.
12,
I'm
there's
so-
the
I'm sorry.
40, and where's the average 2-bedroom unit?
B, H, 5, 6.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a couple clarifying questions?
Sure can.
Ray, can you help us visualize the 2,000-foot radius from...
I could do better than that.
You can help us visualize it.
Sure. Take them all. Actually, let me take one, please.
They're all the same, right?
Yep.
Same way you...
Yeah, same thing that you had before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one.
So how does this impact the B1 inner, B1 outer? Do those designations stay as overlays on top of this new district, or?
Yes, they do.
Yep.
They stay. In an earlier version, and I apologize for not updating this, but I wanted to keep it consistent with what have handed out already. I had considered having the B1 inner district not within the bylaw. I thought I had done that, and when I looked at what I had presented in my haste, I had not left that B1 district out. So that right now, as the bylaw stands, is in this bylaw, and those lots would be applicable.
But your preference, if you had not had the haste, would have not to have been including that? It would sort of be a shape, not a perfect circle, more like a Pac-Man shape?
Well, if you can see the sort of almost triangular shape
Yeah.
of the B1 inner, that would have been not applicable to this.
So it would have been a Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, kind of a pack.
Yeah,
I see what
So
you're saying.
any and all of these available lots, say, right next door here, where we have some condos, this applies to all that land.
Any lot that's over 2 acres in size and has 50 feet of frontage, so yes. But I wanted to clarify that.
So we could be knocking out all our commercial if there is room for commercial up there.
You could knock out some of your commercial. I wouldn't say you'd knock out all of it.
Ray, that kind of brings to mind, what's the motivation for doing this? Why are you proposing this?
Well, the motivation is based upon, we've got a couple of 40Bs coming down right now. We've got one definitely. We've got another one that we've met on. There's talk about a third that may be coming. There's a lot of development pressure, and that's really the motivation behind this, is that to do this right is to get ahead of the development pressure and try and pick where Norfolk wants this type of development, the denser development to happen, so that it doesn't just get foisted upon us willy-nilly and anywhere somebody can find the right price for a lot. So the intention of this is really to look at some of our larger parcels and see if there's an opportunity there to direct development in those locations.
So would commercial development be allowed in this district?
Would commercial, under the 2,000-foot radius? No, that's not the intent of this. It's an overlay. It doesn't take away any of the underlying zoning district.
Right.
What it does is it gives you
second or third option.
So you could still develop commercial in these
Absolutely.
areas. It doesn't.
It's like an
Yes.
added use.
Yeah, because I thought the original question was sort of assuming that it would take that commercial away, but it doesn't.
No, it does
Right.
not.
Well, it could very well take it all away.
Well, yes, it could, but it doesn't
If a developer
prohibit it.
swooped in and grabbed every single
Yes.
parcel that was available right now, and this had
Well,
passed.
It does-
what's
but it
not
doesn't
developed
prohibit.
over here, what's not developed right over there, on the other side of
Yeah.
the road.
Right.
I mean, all that
Could
land
be-
could just
could
be.
be housing.
Housing,
Yeah.
all housing.
Yeah.
You know, this section, local standards, it,
Where are you, on the bylaw?
5.3, yeah, in 5.3.
Shouldn't include that piece.
Right.
I wasn't, it's
Should
a
be the
very broad statement, that the section supersedes all other sections of the zoning bylaw which may be contrary to multifamily buildings unless specifically specified. It's a very broad statement.
It's done on
and-
purpose.
And I didn't, I mean, I read that and I think that this might supersede commercial development.
No, what it's trying to say is that if you're, and maybe it's not written well enough, but if you have a provision within the zoning bylaw that keeps you from allowing commercial, multifamily development, then this would supersede that.
Then it needs to be rewritten.
That's fine.
To say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because contrary to multifamily buildings is anything that's contrary to multifamily buildings.
I take your point.
Yeah.
All right, so you're going to tweak that?
Yep. I'll have to tweak that. Yeah, you know, I did this as a reaction to what I was seeing here in town. And over the past year, I've watched what's happened here, and I've tried to keep my mouth shut and just listen and watch. And one of the things that is very, very poignant to me is that the pressure is all around Norfolk. Been able to keep it at bay, but with the cost of lots, the cost of development, it's becoming a situation where the development's going to happen here, whether Norfolk wants it to happen or not, and it's a matter of us trying to decide how we want it to happen and where we would choose to make that happen.
I completely agree with the spirit of it. I think it's the most important work in front of our board right now. And I just do believe, though, that the strategy of that B1 is super important.
Yep.
And I do wish that, it could be the Pac-Man shape. I think that would just be a bit more advantageous for this strategic, trying to get out in the future ahead of us. It could end up biting us. The haste could end up biting us. So that's my only concern. But the spirit of it and the intention of it, I completely agree with you.
And I just want to add to that is that my intention here was to start the conversation. I really didn't expect that it would just fly right through and happen. But I thought it was important enough to start the conversation. I am very open to the idea of this becoming IP'd. Maybe it comes back in the fall, and we have plenty of time over the summer to talk about this and to really work on it and maybe pull it apart and put it back together the way I think the town would like. But I felt like it was just such a timely piece that, and we're getting this 40B in the coming months. And I thought if there's any chance that we could get ahead of this and make something happen, and maybe not get the 40B, but get something a development that we would like to see happen, I wanted to do that.
But we don't want to put the business core in here, correct?
I was not planning on the business core, no. And really, that's from feedback that I heard throughout the town, was that we want to preserve that business core. We want to support it by having that residential development happen around the business core, but let's make sure that we keep the commercial development where we want it to keep it.
So this really has to be IP'd then?
I think so.
Plus, as we learned last time, we want something in here to have the acreage used for density. We want that to be upland and not include wetlands. So
Thank
I think if we take this thing and we go over this for months and let everybody vet it and come up with all of the particulars to make it work so the town may be receptive to it, then we have a much better chance. But like we talked about last time, after the last hit at town meeting, I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath and come back with something that is fully vetted. So really, you have the answers to everybody's questions. Maybe even bringing in a TV show or something public just to let people know about this well in advance. But
I think you're touching on, my concern is trying to visualize what, this, the written word, what it means, and you've got some experience with this type of zoning. Maybe you've got some developments that, we can look at, venture out there on our own, or you've got some photos or video or something that we can use just to try to put it in perspective. Because I think it's just difficult for us to, I'll speak for myself, this is not something I do every day to really understand the implications of supporting something like this. What's it gonna look like? What's
There's
it gonna
books
feel
written
like,
about just trying to
Yeah.
describe density. Michelle, there's lots of materials out there, and it's done over and over again because it's a very hard concept to.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. So
it is,
I
but
think
even
if you-
pictures
if you
sometimes don't
find-
even do it.
Yeah, but if you find someplace that will show what it looks like.
Sure.
And let us know, then we can look at it and go, oh, that's too dense, or.
That could be hard, though, because,
Yeah.
when you take this whole 2,000 radius, 2 acres or more, as they stand now, I know of 2 properties that qualify, that's it.
He's got them listed
There's a
here.
whole bunch there.
He has everyone that's over 2 acres listed.
I picked
Or
everything over
around
2
2
acres that
acres.
was even touching this area.
Yeah.
Just to see
The only ones I
what.
thought of were the Paul Kelly property and the Simpsons property.
Looks like there's more than that.
There's
Well,
quite a
there's a
few, and,
couple
and,
others.
given enough time, I think we could start to vet some of those things out and see what rises to the top as the cream. This is just a first cut at it, and it's, as an exercise, it was just, let me just grab as many of these parcels that met the 2 acre threshold, or even I've got some 1.9s, because I figured, just in case the survey was wrong. I just threw that in there.
Yeah, but I think the important thing to understand, in density development is, it may not be a perfect circular line. It might end up being a much more defined kind of organic edge to it. But it's still the principle at hand here, which is that your, higher level density comes in this core, right? This core that the business could support and again, concentrates it in a certain area, particularly where your infrastructure of roads and other things tend to be concentrated. So, from a principal level, it's in the right direction. It does need some fine tuning. But.
And maybe we should look clearly at all the setbacks, because if somebody decides to couple up and buy 2 lots and put them together and have 3 acres and 15 houses, you gotta be respectful of the people that abut them that want to keep their single-family homes, and now you get into buffer zones and setbacks and things. So you're not gonna take the person that wants to stay as a single residence that's 2,000 feet away from the tracks and ruin their whole livelihood, per se,
Right.
So a lot of thought has to go in, not only just to make this, if it's chosen to work, give you density, but to protect the people that are here now, that have been there for a while, that will decide that, I don't want to change anything. But I don't want an apartment building 25 feet beside me, so.
That speaks to the reasons you list out for why we may make this decision. I think I saw the reasons were in 5.4A. It would be adjustment for a more desirable design or for buffering adjacent residential properties. So he's got the adjacent residential, but more desirable design is way too subjective. It's more desirable economically, more desirably, aesthetically. I think we really would need to sort of flush out and maybe look at more of our special permit
Which is the point for all
reasons.
the vetting that, there's a lot, every section you could read into, and every person may have something else they can expand on just to make
Yeah.
it better over time,
Well, given the direction it's going, I figured, put all the little sections out now. Give them all the things to think about. Or not.
I had talked to
Yeah.
Jim Lehan over, I think Ray did too, over a meeting with Saltwood, and there was a one-person consensus, I did talk to you, Jeff, that if we decide that we want to IP this, it might be better just to take it off the warrant, so you don't bring back something that had bad memories from the last town meeting and just stir them up again.
So there was a Board of Selectmen meeting last night. It did come up.
Oh, did it?
I wasn't sure if that was going to be conveyed by Jack Hathaway to Steve, but maybe not. So in fact, yeah, as John states, that was the decision that the board made, that if this board felt it was appropriate to IP it, then in
Yeah,
fact, the
because
Board of Selectmen would move
If
to.
we vote to IP it and then somebody amends that to open it, now you've got discussion that we're not set with something that's better, that you want a lot of discussion on. It's probably not the right way to bring something into the, into the public.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have all the comments from the board here? Because
Yeah,
we do
yeah,
have
just
some people here.
to be clear, so the fact that it's on the warrant now, it was done because it was requested by town planner, so it's not like there was a citizen's petition to put it
Right.
on the warrant and then we're taking it off the warrant. So if it's taken off the warrant, it's because the consensus of the people that were of the opinion to put it on the warrant are now
Changed their
thinking
mind.
that let's
Yeah.
take it off, so if we understand.
Well, what is the consensus of the board to IP?
That would be
Is
my
that
vote.
the way-
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah. It's-
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot here that we just need to really go through and understand and work through.
You can just let the Board of Selectmen know that that's the way, that was the consensus of the board, is to IP it.
So I think there's two decisions, though. It's to either IP it or actually remove it from the warrant.
Well, that would be their judgment call.
Okay.
That wouldn't be ours.
It's just IP it, and then the Board of Selectmen, if in fact that was the action of this board, will move it from the warrant.
I guess, and I know it's a strategy to do it that way, but I think to be fully transparent with the town and with the community, I wouldn't mind it being mentioned at town meeting for the fact that, the way that Ray, so nicely and succinctly explained the changes that are coming to Norfolk, like it or not. And so, we really have to make sure our bylaws are going to reflect the way we want our town to grow, rather than our town growing in a way that's going to shape us. And so if nothing other than to say, we're not ready yet, we didn't have enough time, but we do want people to understand that we are looking into this, and we do plan to have it in the fall, so get involved, because we have to do something, and we have to work together, but we really need to reach a better spot than where we are right now. And so for no other reason than that, just to be transparent and have people understand it's still a huge issue for this town, otherwise we're gonna have changes nobody likes.
Well, even if we put changes that we like, there's no guarantee that someone's not gonna come in and say, I don't like the changes that you've got.
So I'm not
still gonna
saying
do a
that I put it
40B."
on there just because everyone's gonna be peachy happy. I'm just saying we put it out there because we are gonna have to make some changes. And so just to be transparent about the upcoming process, that would be my only argument
If
for
you want to,
mentioning it.
you can use the committee reports.
That's where to do it.
5 minutes.
That's where to do it.
5 minutes with
Yeah,
slides.
Sure.
Because if you remove it from the warrant, I don't know that there's an opportunity aside from that.
Yes.
That actually takes away debate.
Yeah. And it also, if you have a way to invite people
Right.
into the process, you can specify it.
Yes, so I think it would be important for whatever the proper venue is, but
Yeah.
again, transparency, I think, is huge in gaining the trust that we're all trying to work together towards a
Good point.
common
Good
goal.
suggestion. That's good.
That's how master plan used their time.
Have you heard of the lean process, Ray? It's it's a new buzz term. for sort of-
LEAN?
Yeah.
For roads?
No, it's a new process used in any kind of decision-making. It's not just for planning, it can be for any decision that you have to make, where you have a variety of competing interests and a whole bunch of stakeholders, all with different agendas. And it's a process. There are consultants out there that facilitate the lean process. I've been through a couple of preliminary lean processes. It might be a process that we decide to use for something like this, to work through. And in the end, what it helps do is identify sort of where can you get your biggest bang for your buck versus what is the hardest to implement. And it sort of quickly then identifies, okay, where can we get our biggest bang for the buck, but it's easiest to implement. And it helps everybody sort of reach that consensus
Great.
as a way to move forward. So
So you start taking components of this and then you use that tool.
could maybe
test
lean
it.
this. It might just be a great process for us, because it's a complicated issue with a lot of stakeholders, and it's a perfect kind of process for that.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
So if we IP this relative to the same article is the second proposal and third, correct?
Well, we'll do them all one by one. Are there any comments from the public here?
Oh, time's up.
Peter Diamond, 84 Seekonk Street. I think the board touched on all of my concerns for the most part, and I'm glad with the decision to IP it for now until some more work put into it. I understand Ray's position that want to develop downtown and have something that we can control versus the 40B. So, but it does need some more work, so let's work on it and make a step forward. I'd like to take a look at section H58, where Ray specifies 5% of the single-family dwelling units, and that 5% equals 162 multifamily dwelling units, which is quite a bit for the downtown area. Now, are we going to keep track of development as the town grows too? For instance, we have up to 500 units coming in down at Southwood. We have other developments under consideration, so our housing stock's going to rise. So if we have 4,000 units, all of a sudden that grows to 200 units downtown. So as it's developed, you keep track of each one, and
Yeah, the
over
beauty,
a number of years, over 10 years it could take to develop this. We're going to keep track of every one that's built.
We're going to have to.
Is that the
yeah.
idea?
Yeah, and the beauty of this was that it, you'd have to amend it on town meeting floor, because they made it part of the zoning bylaw. So it could be stuck at 162 for a while. And it only gets changed, it only gets bumped up when we decide that it's appropriate to do that.
So
there's
that
a cap.
doesn't rise with the housing stock in town?
It's not
Capped
like,
at 162?
yeah, it's not like gross domestic product and it just keeps rising. And I think that we just had something in the news about that where we wanted to tie some things to that.
So maybe some language would need to be put into that section.
Okay.
So that we understand that. I think other than that, I haven't got much more to say. I'm glad it's being IP'd.
Sure.
Elizabeth Whitney, 26 Valley Street, Pondville. I had exactly the same comment. 5% of the 3,250 single family. So that's good, single family. But I was wondering, what happens when the number of single family housing units increases? So I'm very happy that this will be IP'd. So I agree with what Peter just said. This is designed specifically for the area around town center. Would it ever happen somewhere else in town?
It would have to be done through
Again.
town meeting, just like this.
I don't envision it.
Is that the plan?
I don't envision it, no.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
We were thinking of Pondville.
Enough is going on.
that's a great idea.
Never mind, we'll do it in Pondville.
We're on Valley Street, is that what?
No, but I'll probably be living up at Pondville Estates someday, so I'll keep my eye open. I think that's good. I'm glad that this is going to be really intense. Oh, I know what my question. So this will be on the town warrant in its totality?
We're not sure.
Or
We're not
what?
sure.
The Board of Selectmen decided last night at a Board of Selectmen meeting that if this board decided to IP, because this board has to make a formal recommendation for all zoning articles.
Yes.
So if this board decided to IP the article, that the Board of Selectmen would actually have it removed. We would open the warrant, remove it, and close the warrant. So it would not show itself
Okay,
at town
I
meeting,
heard-
but we would discuss the need to come to terms with zoning and
And to really
potential
dig in.
changes. as
I
a committee
heard-
report.
I heard you start to say that, and you kind of fizzled out at the end.
Oh,
and I
sorry
thought,
about that.
And
Sorry about that.
Michelle, what lean is an acronym?
I don't know if it's an acronym
I mean,
or not.
lean. Oh, I was dying to know what L.
Well, they have,
stood
you know,
for.
lean manufacturing,
Yeah, it
it's
started in the
process mapping,
manufacturing.
trying to reduce waste and such. and-
But it's
and
got
trying
to
yeah,
stand
so-
for
So it sounds, it's analogous, but.
loving,
but it's different.
enjoyable, you know. put it all
Enjoyable,
together.
yes. Just think- Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
is-
Good,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
it might work for
Anybody
this.
else?
Maybe, yeah.
It's so
It's actually called lean process
I'm familiar with the
improvement.
Oh, I know a lot about it.
No,
and
not
it's-
that lean.
We do not,
Mr.
we do not
Developer.
want to talk about lean at 10:30 in the evening, trust me. So I figured I'd try to Google it, never mind.
Nancy Connors, Everett Street. I'm very concerned to hear about any multifamily apartments in the center of our town. I really sincerely do not like the idea of it whatsoever. I know Ray meant well with what he proposed, and maybe some of what he had in mind is workable. For me, in my estimation, multifamily dwellings, one on top of another, with all of that density in the center of town, is just not Norfolk, and should it be Norfolk? We're saying, okay, we need development to help to foreign the businesses in town. We have 21 businesses over at 1A and 115, and there hasn't been one new house built to support them, and all those businesses are doing very well. So that, to me, is a baloney. I really sincerely have a lot of faith in this board and many of the great decisions this board has made, and I'm hoping that you will stay on top of keeping this reasonable for our town when it will comes back to you. Because this draft was planning board will decide this, planning board will decide that. A lot of great decisions are going to come on your board. And thank God we have the group we have, because I really think you're fantastic and I appreciate it. But this thing scared the hell out of me, I'll be truthful, even though I know you meant well, Ray. But I think we ought to be very careful about this type of development. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So, we have these definitions. There's Section B inserting definitions, one for multifamily housing and another for multifamily development. Is this all part of the same
Yes.
article that we're looking at?
So
Oh,
we'd-
okay.
we'd move right along if you-
So if we IP it, we're IPing these also?
Correct.
It's all one
Okay.
article.
Article L.
Article L was a citizen's petition, and this is to allow...
Excuse me, just a point of order. I mean, normally who's putting something on the warrant would come here and present this. I mean, are you presenting this on behalf?
No, I'm trying to just explain it.
Who's presenting? Who brought it forward?
John Robbins.
I usually like to see in, like, what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, if you want to have a healthy, you know, debate, I mean, it's helpful to have the people here that are petitioning. That's, I mean, Steve is the chairman, so I'm just making a point of order.
I mean, since you're familiar with it, you can present it as is, but I don't know how much information we can glean from you, because you're not the person who's got this on there.
This seems to be pointed at MacArthur.
It does. You know, it's interesting. Somebody sent me, did you get it right? There's a case law. You know, we have grandfather's lots, and we have paper roads, and we have private roads that have been platted from before that date. There is extensive mass case law on that, and it probably help everybody to read that law, because we have very specific requirements of what we have to do and what we can't do, and it looks like from reading this long case that some of our regs may have to be adjusted, because there are definite rights there to people that are on these ways, and there's also rights for people that aren't the petitioner but also abut that way at the time. So it's not something that's like, you know, what do you think is the best thing to do? There is a specific case law regarding a lot of this, And even when you look at that, it's still confusing. So I think what he's talking about here probably would be superseded by the case law, and what's already been decided by the courts for all these places that have paper lots, paper streets, or as Gino had said when I had questioned with Mr. Stivaleta, a platted way that's been around, because they consider that the same as a paper street with the same rights to everybody that is on that. So we're gonna have specific rules that we go by, because I guess generally one of the things was if they can provide safe access, which is the key, what is safe access, then we can't deny them. And it seemed to be that they do not have to file a subdivision plan. It's already been subdivided. So there's some gray area on what type of a roadway are we going to allow for safe access, and how wide, and does it meet town specs, et cetera. So it's very involved, and I think this here sort of just takes up bits and pieces of the law that's actually been ruled on. So my suggestion is just to vote to, well, we can't IP this because it was submitted by a petitioner, right?
You just have to vote to approve
So
or not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be for this, only because I think it interferes with the law as we have it. And like I said, I think
But
that...
This is,
You would approve
but
it,
this
you mean?
here.
No, not to approve it, no,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
No,
Because
no.
they're saying to construct a private way.
I
We don't-
know.
We don't have any,
And this is what confused me. It says, on up to 2 single lots, where public roads could have been approved but were waived because, so I don't understand what all that means.
Yeah.
I don't think it was written as well as it could be, so
Right, why would we waive a public
I
road?
I don't think you can waive a
Amount of
public
land
road, a
available.
paper road. I think once it's on there, it's there, and there are rights to people that abut it.
Yeah, I mean, just back to the point where if somebody's gonna put something, on the warrant, that they should really come here and be prepared to
Right.
speak to it and advocate. Otherwise, I mean, we're in a position where I don't know that there's any alternative to just
Well,
to
there-
deny it, to vote against it.
I mean, they're asking the planning board to have authorization to do something, but they're not here to talk to the planning board about the intent or the details or the specifics. So for that reason, I agree, I need to learn a lot more about this and hear what the intent was to make sure the language is meeting that before I'm gonna sign on to then authorize it and enforce it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
okay, so I'm just gonna ask for a vote on whether or not you feel as though we should approve or not approve this particular article. I would say not approved. Anyone else have a preference?
Not approved.
Not approve.
Not approved.
Okay, so let's move on to M.
I didn't get to talk about it.
You don't have to.
Thank you.
But when you get to town meeting, if you
It'll
could
be
have,
discussed.
if you could have a reason more than just, process and disrespect, you should
Oh, yeah,
have, you
yeah,
should have
this
some
is-
good, you should have some real, you should have some good reasons.
I think we pointed
Case
out
law
right
that
here.
you
Yeah.
referred to?
I'll give that to Steve so he could read it and present it at town meeting.
Yeah.
Steve.
I can do that.
Yeah,
I have
right.
no trouble doing stuff like that. How big is this?
It's very
Volume.
limited.
Volume.
Have you seen the zoning bylaw?
You shouldn't commit so early.
But speaking
No,
of,
I could pick bits and pieces. I can
Yes.
pick what I have to.
You'll
out
get
of
the
it.
essence of what,
before we go to the next
Not
article,
sure.
speaking of presentations, we touched on it earlier, but didn't close, which is committee, committee presentations is where to present this idea. Now, is that something that you've taken the responsibility for preparing?
do that. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'll do that.
And if you speak, you're not from town, right?
I'm
You
the
have to give
town,
him-
I'm your town planner.
As a town employee, you can
He can be called to the mic, yeah.
yeah.
You pay me all this money, you might as well
Oh, no,
listen to me
I
speak.
totally get it. It's just that town meeting has got these rules.
Well, I think,
I think you're introduced by your
and yeah,
chairman.
I mean, we should do it the right way. I mean, we're gonna have a working session soon, in the next couple weeks, and I think, Steve, obviously, it's, as
Everyone
Andrea
cancel their
says,
summer vacations.
you're invited to
Yeah.
speak on behalf of the planning board as our, as our valued
Bullock speaks all
resource.
the time.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Yeah,
Bob
he
does, yeah.
And, yeah, that's the right way to do it.
If anybody has a summer beach house or something that we have to meet there, that's
Retreat.
fine.
Then density
That has,
retreats.
Cocktails would be acceptable.
Yeah, now that
that-
the nice
that-
weather is here, you got
that's
my
happened.
attention.
Careful.
Careful, yeah.
I don't own any second homes, so it's not going to be me. I'll have poolside meetings, though.
Moving on quickly.
Article
Glad to
M.
do that.
Let's go to Article M.
All right.
Okay, this is submitted by the building commissioner. Where is he?
He asked me to speak tonight.
Oh, okay.
Didn't we do this?
Huh?
Yes, this was on
Yeah, we
the
did
last
do
town
this.
meeting, the fall town meeting.
Yes.
What it didn't have on it was this accessory to a primary use. So in both cases, it's a residential building
Oh, yeah.
or a commercial building. And what Bob is attempting to do is to stop solar or wind projects from just happening
on
on
an
vacant,
available lot.
on vacant land.
Right.
Exactly.
So if,
Right.
in other words, if we have to live next to it, you also have to live next to it.
And the
Right.
advisory board tonight just reconsidered their vote and voted to approve this. That's what I was told
Yeah.
before he
Oh,
left.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
they originally wanted to deny
Because
this?
they didn't understand it, I guess.
Oh, they were thinking of it backwards, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think this is much discussion here. I think that the board is going to approve this one. Is there any dissenters?
Do you want to open to the public?
Oh. I'm going to open this to the public. Do you have any comments?
Can I ask a back question?
Yes.
The board shall adopt the multifamily housing rules. Is this something new, and where are these multifamily housing rules?
Where-
Could we find out what they are?
Where are you at?
Where are you at?
Page 3 on the proposal. The top, very top statement.
That's all part of the one that's going to be taken off the warrant.
Oh, I understand that.
Oh,
But does that mean you won't be doing, since this is going to come back, you won't be having to this multifamily housing rules? Where are they? Where could we look them up, find out what they are?
Can I answer that?
yeah.
Yeah.
That was part of this bylaw, so we would, if the bylaw got passed, the planning board would establish multifamily housing rules.
They'd establish it. There's no set rules already written.
We would pass the bylaw first and then establish the multifamily housing rules. So you don't need the rules if you don't have any multifamily housing.
But I'm saying you would establish the rules. There are no rules already printed that you're accepting. Is that what I?
Would you do it simultaneously,
yeah,
Ray?
that's-
Or at
Well,
least
it
the
would be an
outline
action of
for
the
it?
planning board, at the planning board level, as part of your rules and regulations. So it would go into a different book. So you have the orange book, and then you have the yellow, the white book. The multifamily housing rules would end up in the white book.
So you're making
The
new
zoning
rules.
bylaw would end up here
There's
in the
no
orange
place for
book.
me to go read those rules.
Not yet.
Exactly.
I think that to be successful, gaining support for a bylaw, I would think we would need to have that granular information,
Yeah,
that
doing it
detail, so that we could
simultaneously.
expound on it.
Sure.
Just based on experience, I mean, people,
agree.
people take this very seriously, and everyone wants the best thing, for the town. We're all trying to,
And did I miss the
Some
fact that you
consensus as to
officially
what that means.
voted to IP this?
Yes.
We did, yeah.
An official vote?
A-
It is.
I must have left the room, I'm sorry.
Actually, we did a straw poll. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
official.
well, we can do an official vote. Okay. We'll just make sure that it's taken as an official vote. Article G, I make a motion to IP Article G for the warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then, do you want to make a similar motion on Article L to not approve?
Sure, go ahead.
Article L, make a motion to not approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Article M, I make a motion to approve Article M.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It doesn't,
That was easy.
What is this one that, Betsy, that you handed? Is it the
Thank
same
you for
thing?
coming,
Same
folks.
thing. Thanks, Peter.
Okay,
I think it was bolded and better type or
fair
something.
enough.
Back to island lighting and power.
Yeah, but
Oh.
we're moving through it.
Yeah.
Review and
You started
approve
it.
site plan.
Yeah, we're,
Oh, we
We
have the
had
decision.
started this before you
Yeah.
came, Jeff.
We got
This is
one,
what we
we
started
got one
our
more,
time.
if you don't
Way
mind.
through.
oh, what's that?
That very last one, if you look at the notice, authorized town planner, we renumber sections B, H, blah, 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 blah. Actually, it may not be necessary if we're just, it won't be necessary as far as I can tell.
We renumbered the warrant articles last night, the Board of Selectmen meeting. So what's the question?
This would be let's say all three of these passed. There may be a need just to renumber and reorganize the zoning bylaw in order to fit everything in there properly. That's all that.
Within the
all that
warrant or
was.
within the bylaw?
Within the bylaw.
Oh, within the bylaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just it's sort of a catch-all kind of phrase where it's, if there's going to be changes to the, if this stuff passes, then there's going to be changes to the bylaw. In case there's something within the bylaw that just needs to be restructured, because we had one last town meeting where we had to take out sections that were left in the bylaw, and this would eliminate that need to go back to town meeting at a future meeting to renumber things.
We'll just IP this too, then.
Well, I'm looking at Article L, that, unless,
It's not in.
Well, if we just voted to approve the one about section D2C, so if that gets approved at town floor, we need this language.
No, because that's inside, that's already embedded inside a table that exists.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
already in
I
there.
would agree with that.
Okay.
And the same with L. L is to be section E18. It's not going to interfere with anything. It's just going to be new.
Let me just double check that, because I see in bold he's got the commercial. Let me just double check that before we.
The Northeastern.
26.
I feel real good about that.
Okay.
30 years ago.
You know what? Why don't we just, out of an abundance of caution, approve that, because we're adding 3 to the, on this table here, we're adding 3 at the bottom, just in
we are
case.
adding?
Yeah,
But it's not going to interfere with any other numbering, right?
I hope.
You're
in
afraid
case.
it might interfere with some other.
Just in
numbering.
case. It's a safeguard.
It's a lanyard. But
All right, so,
do you want one? I have a
let me
second
make a
one.
motion?
Yeah.
All right, I move
Do you know
to
what that
authorize
is?
the town planner to renumber
Do you want it?
certain sections of the Norfolk zoning bylaw as needed to incorporate whatever amendments are approved
They'll-
on
they should
town
give it to you.
floor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
All right.
Now we go to the,
If you
Island
guys
lighting.
don't need me, can I head out?
Well, when do we have to have the island lighting done?
It means we want to close the
decision
hearing
tonight.
for town
The-
warrant.
The warrant here.
Is that what you mean?
You close the warrant hearing, but then the decision on island lighting should be approved tonight, and then the 21-day wait period starts up. They can't do anything for that 21-day period. In that time, they'll be able to come forward with the subdivision and get that all wrapped up.
and they want.
And then you guys sign the
They wanna
Mylar.
come forward with that Mylar that incorporates the.
That's what he's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
calling
what
that
he's
the
saying.
subdivision.
Yeah, they want the appeal period to start running.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think as long as we amend that, item number 7 on page 4 to reflect that these lots shall be combined, prior to endorsement of the
Of the
Mylar,
Yeah.
I guess is the way to clarify.
Yeah, I think.
Let's close the hearing first.
articles.
Sorry.
I move to close the public hearing for town meeting zoning articles.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And then what Michelle said.
Didn't you already take a note to amend that?
She-
Yeah,
Betsy has
she had
that.
started to, we're just getting
Betsy
back
wrote
to
that,
it,
yeah. So we have that.
Right.
And then I was on the last section. Water.
So now, we're supposed to approve the special permit and,
Site plan.
So there's
Yeah.
3.
There's
Stormwater.
stormwater, site plan, special permit, and earth removal in this.
Do we have to
So
make
there's
3
4 of them.
separate motions?
yes, I think so.
Yes,
I would think.
definitely.
Is everyone ready to make a motion on the site plan?
The site plan, I'm done with. Yep,
Go
you
ahead.
can make a motion on the site plan.
All right, I
So
move to-
just, okay, we're gonna do them each separately and take
Yeah, yeah,
comments? Okay.
may as well.
Site plan first, is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
I want to get that, okay, there it is on this page. All right, I move to accept the site plan application decision number 2015-03 for Island Lighting and Power Systems on 14 Shire Drive, lots 19 and 20, Shire Industrial Park. Decision, I mentioned 2015-03, yeah.
I would amend that with.
Amended
yeah.
with the amendment of, on page 4, item 7, as you captured it, whatever the heck you said.
Yeah, it was on the site plan.
Yeah. Prior to endorsement of the Mylar, right? Mylar for the site plan.
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we read the other one.
So there's a note to the planning board on page 2, right? Or is that intended to be part of the decision?
You're talking about or if formula?
In bold, yeah. is
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
I think that's for us to act on this evening and decide what to put in there for the final version, yes? I would think. We normally wouldn't have something like that in there.
Who, did you put that in, Ray? Or was
Gino
that
did
Gino?
that.
So, or if formula is prorated, I don't know what the prorating is.
Size of the building, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have 2 ways to go, it looks like.
What are the 2 ways to go?
So you have just your standard size up to 48 square feet,
Yeah.
and then you go based on the building size of 26,000 square feet. Whichever is
Yeah, 12
smaller or
square-
larger, I can't remember.
That's what makes, that's the difference, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember in the bylaw, I just don't have it in front of me, so I can look at it.
12 square feet for every 10,000,
So if it was 40,000, that gives you the
48,
48,
yeah.
But the prorated would give
but
it
it's only
31. right?
26 versus 40. So 13 divided by 20. 10, 65%.
So it's either.
Yeah, it's about,
Have
as
they-
as he did, it's about 31 square feet if you do the arithmetic.
Right.
That's what he's,
Did they submit a sign proposal as part of what we've seen?
they said something about sign when they were here.
It was on their
Yeah.
architectural plans, I believe.
I guess the question is it 24 square feet or smaller, or is it
You want,
bigger?
would you like me to grab it?
Might help.
He said, he has it in here, doesn't he?
No, he's saying we have the right to approve 31 or even bigger. So I'm wondering, what did they submit? If they haven't submitted bigger than 24 square feet, then it's a moot point. Let's just get rid of the bold.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty big.
Or 31 square.
So I'm confused because if you do the math, like Walter says, you come out to 31 square feet for 26,000 square feet of building footprint. but yet it says with a building footprint of approximately 26,000 square feet, the applicant is entitled to maximum size building of 24 square feet instead of the 31 that you calculate if you prorate it. So there's some graduations in there where if you don't prorate, maybe it comes out to
It's
24.
a step function or something, maybe?
I mean, I'm okay with 31. I mean, it's change the 24 to 31.
Oh, it's 12 square feet for each 10,000, so.
Yeah.
If you go
Right.
10,000, 24,000, 36,000.
No.
It's 65%. It's 65% of 40,000 is what they're, 65% of 48 square feet is what they're entitled to based on 26,000 versus 40,000. It's 65%,
Yeah.
which gives you 31
Right.
square feet versus the 48. So where the 24, yeah, what you're saying is, are there certain thresholds that are
it's a
listed if
threshold,
you don't
right.
prorate? That is why it says 24.
But does it-
But I'm
do we
okay
have the op-
prorating, I mean, I'm okay prorating.
Yeah,
That
I'm
doesn't
okay with
seem to be-
prorating, too.
That doesn't seem to be
Building
fair
sign.
not to
That's the-
prorate.
this
I mean,
5.6 by 5.6.
I would just put in
Yeah,
the
but it-
31.
Right.
In the decision?
And as it's changed 24 to 31.
Unless they've asked for something larger than 31.
What did they ask for, folks?
He has it here. Site plan review, at the very bottom.
5.6 by 5.6.
5.5 by 5.5.
5 feet,
Sounds
6
like about
inches.
close to 31.
Yeah, it does.
I think that's probably why Gino put that, is, okay, that's their sign.
What is it? Are you gonna do it?
5 foot 6 inches by 5 foot 6 inches.
It's 5.5 times 5.5.
Oh, so it slightly exceeds the
Yeah.
24.
5.5 times 5.5.
So let's put in the 31.
30.25.
30.25, yeah.
So I agree. Let's do the prorated 31.
That Gino.
And then we can, so we could keep that, or with,
Or-
or with prorated formula, 31 square feet, and then leave the rest off.
Yeah, yeah.
So maximum building size of 24 square feet, or with prorated formula,
Yeah. Or 31 square
31
feet based
square
on
feet.
prorated.
Yeah, period, and then get rid of everything else.
Formula, yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Can you say that again?
Michelle does that better than I.
Yeah. Jeff,
To a
you wanna
maximum
interject?
size building sign of 24 square feet.
Yep.
I like your way you said it. Or 31 square feet based on prorated formula.
41 square feet. Based
This is a friendly planning board.
Yeah.
We aim to please.
I want to be fair.
That's right.
Logical.
Well, that was easy. So we have to vote on this, Steve?
Yes.
The
Yes.
Special permit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Are we ready to?
Well, have you read all the way through it?
I did.
Okay, this is all about the storage. Now, we've covered the storage pretty much in detail.
Yes, a lot of these.
So I'll make the motion to approve the special permit application for Island Lighting and Power Systems. Decision number 2015-02.
Special
roll-
permit, I think,
it's a roll
believe we
call?
have to roll call vote.
Roll call
yeah.
vote.
So Stephen McLean, aye.
Walter Byron, aye.
John Whittleton, aye.
Michelle Mayhew, aye.
Jeff Palumbo, aye.
My badge, I wasn't sure what it was.
It's a badge of honor.
Stormwater
Super
map.
simple housekeeping thing, page 3, item 2 under specific conditions needs to reference the site plan decision number 2015-03.
Is this on the stormwater?
It's on the last one, yeah, stormwater, page 3,
Oh, yep.
item 2.
And the title actually says 9 Shire Drive.
Should be
I
Should be
actually changed, I had
14.
already, did I already change that?
No, yeah.
Oh, there, oh, thank you. Okay, oh, and then I see safety.
Oh, and there's another one, yeah,
Yeah,
down there
just
in
saw-
that.
I just saw that.
Find your place. Yeah, I know you will. You're good like that.
All right. Are we all set? Everyone done?
Mhm.
Anyone want to make a motion, or are there any edits that you want to make sure that get in there? Oh, you've already said that you have an edit.
We just had adding a couple of permit numbers and then up at the heading, the address.
Motion to approve the conditions of stormwater management permit for 14 Shire Drive with amendments mentioned.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Earth removal.
Oh, isn't that part of?
No, it's
That's
was
a
that
whole separate one?
stormwater. Yeah, that's, yeah.
It's the last page.
Oh, boy,
Last two pages.
I know this
Yeah,
is
that's
Steve's favorite subject, earth removal.
Diving for veins of sand or gravel below specified elevations is strictly prohibited.
That's in our bylaws.
I never heard the term diving
Yeah.
before.
It's a great term.
Hmm.
You know, when I was a kid, there was a Scrooge McDuck used to dive into his pool full of coins. Remember that?
That must have hurt.
In some places, they'll take that out, because you possibly can't take the good gravel out, take the gravel inside. They'll sell that. Take it out.
The good stuff, fill it up with crap.
Yeah, they'll take the crappy stuff from this site. No. I'm surprised there's that much that has to be removed
Yeah,
off-site.
10,000.
I know, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's that fact that it's that hill.
Yeah.
I think Rick is overly cautious in applying for this. If we had a little bit more time with him, or I had a little bit more time with him, we could have scrutinized this a little bit more and probably not needed this. But out of an abundance of caution, I think he decided, let me just do it just in case.
Well, how many trucks is 10,000 trucks?
10,000 yards, yeah.
10,000 yards, it's a lot of trucks.
10,000 yards, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of trucks.
Is it 100 yards?
40 is in 1,000.
40 trucks per 1,000?
Mhm.
Wow.
So that's 400.
40 tractor trailers.
Yeah, so it's 400 truckloads.
Yeah, he looked at this based on just, if I have to move some material around on the site to regrade it. I'm going to be moving, not 10,000, but I'm going to be moving material, and I don't want to butt up against anybody's in getting this done. He wants to be able to just, or the owner wants to get the work done. That was his explanation to me.
These are all standard
Can we
conditions,
establish
too.
what the legal holidays were? Remember that coming up with Mr. Petrosi?
It's as defined by the state. My recollection was we may have inadvertently left legal holidays off something some years ago. I'm not sure.
We
if it ever
listed
was.
some and left some off.
That's
what
what
it
happened.
was,
We listed
yeah.
it as opposed to just saying legal holidays.
So now it's all legal holidays.
Yeah.
Good catch-all.
It is, it's awkward to split them up.
Question, we don't get to, rule on a 40B proposal, but are they required to file as-built with the board? They must be required
Yes.
to file as-built, so.
Yeah.
Zoning Board of Appeals will have a chance to review it, won't it?
They go through the zoning board, yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, jumping back for a second, I thought it was more appropriate to have the planning board review these things than to have 40Bs coming in. Zoning board doesn't feel comfortable doing this, but it's something that they have to do.
Yeah, I thought state law says that zoning board has to do it, right?
They do have to do it, yeah.
I don't believe the 40Bs have to be bonded, which is why Meeting House, nothing was bonded. Which is gonna be an issue.
So we have threes. We've
We
got
have three.
one in Lower Main Street there,
Yep.
the Boy Scout property.
Yep.
That's two, where's the third one?
And, help me with the name, the property
The
next to,
plateau.
no, Gross's property.
Give me that again?
Next to Gross's property?
Frank Road?
Frank,
Oh,
no, Paul Keller?
Paul Kelly
Kelly,
property?
yeah, there's some interest over there.
Oh,
I've had some people poking around about that one, too.
okay.
So, and then to Placido is a fourth.
Yeah, he'll be coming back. He'll be coming back.
It's coming.
Anyone have any comments on this earth removal permit?
No.
What we've already discussed. All right, so I move to accept approve the earth removal permit for 14 Shire Drive, Norfolk.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, before it goes too far, I'd like to discuss this whole thing, this letter that we got about the associate member. Because there's some it looks to me like a bad interpretation of the law to me.
signature pages for those two
But
decisions.
I'll call town council and find out where she came up with this, because I'd already spoken to somebody else, and it didn't sound like this at all with the other person I spoke to. And, but where did this originate anyway? Where did this come from?
There was a complaint that was
Yeah, but who complained?
Peter Chipman.
That's who we expect. This is a very narrow interpretation. And, I guess every town in Massachusetts must be doing it wrong, because they all use the associate member the same way.
So in terms of next meetings, we all set with that? I just want to make
Yes.
sure that our calendars are.
Working session at 8 o'clock on the 28th.
Yep.
And then we've got our next regular session, May 19th, 7:30.
I will not be at that one.
Are you gonna be able to make the 28th?
So you'll let me know.
Okay.
You'll follow up, let me know how this goes?
Yes, I will.
Outside of public hearing, perhaps?
And I think we're wrapping up the business where you needed, my participation was important, because that week, I may be traveling that week, but
Oh.
I'm not sure that that's a problem that week in May.
Well,
And it's always subject to change, but at this point, I'm planning on.
well, we'll
traveling.
keep our eye on that.
Yeah, just keep it in mind as far as the agenda. I mean, it's gonna happen from time to time, so.
All right, anyone else have anything that they want to bring up? No? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.